Okay. Okay, my first time doing this in a little while. Okay. Can I see like the chat from here? Sorry, y'all. It's low-key been a few years since I've done that. Let me check the audio to be sure the audio's good. Refresh this, John. My first time doing this in a little while. Okay, we're chilling. We are high-key chilling. We respond to that. Yeah, it's literally been like 3 years since I've done this. I'm gonna go live on Instagram too, just to let people know, if you will. Let me do a live. What's up, Oliver, on my Instagram stream? Hold on, I'm trying to like pin the message to see the. Let's see, can I pin this message? Okay. Yo, Oliver, I'm live on YouTube, and I have like more on screen. I'm just doing this to like kind of promote my YouTube live stream, but I'll have my phone at like kind of like an angle there. So yeah, just letting you know, twin. Can I see like the live chat? I think so. Okay. Well, basically what I'm doing here, pretty self-explanatory. Since it's the 5-year anniversary of my channel, I started this channel, started my account, my Instagram account as well, 5 years ago today, back in 2021. I decided, what am I going to do for my special? Now, I don't know if anyone's going to watch this, but I'm at least going to post this as I'm going to keep it posted as a YouTube video. I know you're seeing like my whole like OBS setup. Um, I'm gonna, let me see if it like does that right. Let me see if it like switches right. I decided, what am I going to do for my special? Now, I don't know if anyone's going to watch this, but I'm at least going to more on screen. I'm trying to. Okay, it does work like that. Just trying to see some. Okay. So basically, I'm gonna go through my whole Captain Coaster. I'm gonna go through all of Captain. How do I have my like? Can I see my like chat displayed? I'm trying to see like my live chat too. Like I'm trying to figure that out. What's up, Luke? I'm live on YouTube, so go check that out. Y'all, it's genuinely been a minute since I've done this, so I don't know how to see like my live chat. Low key forgot. Let me see. Is that possible? About the chat window from your YouTube live dashboard. Copy the URL. Loki don't know how that works. It's been a minute since I've done this. Cause I want to do this like as a Q&A also. I want to do this as like also Q&A. This is supposed to be the live control panel, if I'm seeing this correct. Next, let me select this stream. Like, can I see the chat? Is anyone in the chat? Who knows? I want to do this like as a Q&A also. I want to do this as like also Q. How do I do this? Okay, I don't know how I'm gonna see the chat at the same time. Maybe I'll just have the live stream up just in case, which I do see someone's there. Yeah, 'cause I forget how to see it like in my thing. Um, what you been up to? Well, right now I'm doing a live stream on my YouTube channel. So there's like there's kind of more stuff in that one. Um, but otherwise it's just been chilling basically for the summer. But I'm doing this stream for like the ConqueringCoasterz 5 year anniversary. So that's the kind of deal. So anyway, sorry about the sort of delay here. I'm gonna be going over every coaster I've ridden. Like I'm gonna be ranking every single coaster I've ridden. What's up, Matthew? Um, I'm live on YouTube and like I'm displaying my screen. I'm doing like all my like ranking all my coasters I've ridden. So um, yeah, this might be a bit of a long stream, but you know, still trying to run it anyway. Happy 5 years Conquering Coasters. Thank you very much. That is much appreciated. Also, I don't know if I pointed this out, but welcome Luke to the stream. Um, but you're an OG. That's right. OG fans for real. Um, so anyway, let's start from the bottom here. Sup, Ariana? Hello. I'm doing a live stream on YouTube if you wanna check that out and support my channel. Um, I'm going over like all my coaster rankings, but I appreciate you joining my stream. I have to send a like kissing emoji back for real. Yeah, there we go. All right, so we're gonna just I need to go ahead and start this off. Okay, so let's start from the bottom here because we're going bottom to top. This might be a long stream because I've ridden 222 coasters, so I've ridden a lot of rides, basically. So if y'all want to ask me questions about whatever, about my channel, about my rankings, about my coaster opinions, feel free to do so. You know, that's another part of this 5 year anniversary stream. So that's kind of the situation. Also, welcome to the stream, Matthew. I swear I can't figure out how to see it in my OBS studio. I genuinely can't figure out how to see it, but yeah, just kind of annoying. So starting at the bottom, you might notice this says Blue Hawk at Six Flags Over Georgia in Austell, Georgia. This is only half true. I have not ridden this ride as Blue Hawk. I rode this coaster back in 2014 as Ninja. That's what it was called. And it was not a pleasant ride experience. When they changed it to Blue Hawk, they apparently retracked the ride and they changed the restraints. Um, so the version I rode was super rough profiling transitions on the ride, and it had those old like over the shoulders restraints. So it was a very unpleasant ride experience from what I remember. I was still little when I rode it. If I rewrite this as Blue Hawk, I'm sure it's gonna shoot up in my rankings and won't be my worst coaster that I've ridden still. But for now, until I get my redemption ride on it, that's kind of how it is. Also, welcome to the stream, my girlfriend, Ariana. Um, Thank you for joining the stream. So, um, just above that, at the 221st spot, is Georgia Cyclone at the same park. This is a Dinwiddie. It operated from, let's see, okay. Yeah, operated from 1990 to 2017. And I rode it in 2014. It was just probably the roughest or one of the roughest wood coasters I've ridden for sure. Like I remember some really bad jackhammering moments on it from back when I was little. Like the layout in itself, it's just a clone of the iconic Cyclone layout, basically. Kind of like the one at like Luna Park in New York. But it was just super rough. It was not a pleasant ride. And I know since then they've made an RMC. That's another ride I am yet to ride. And I really need to revisit Six Flags Over Georgia. I would love to at some point soon. That would be really nice. But that's just kind of how it is for now. Why does my stream look like that? I just noticed like maybe it's just because my screen's like bright. I don't know. Like, I don't know if I need to select that, but either way. Um, so we got that. Um, Now just above that at the 220th spot, this is gonna take all night. Um, 200, but again, I'm gonna make this like a video too. I'm gonna keep this as a video, so I don't care like how many people are on the stream. Like, I'm just gonna have it like, you know. Anyway, 220th spot, that is gonna be Carolina Cyclone at Carowinds in Charlotte, North Carolina. Park's also technically in Fort Mill, South Carolina. It's on the state line there. This is the worst coaster I've ridden like this decade. Like within um, the past 5 years, just about. It's opened in 1980. This one is still operating. I rode it when it had this like yellow color scheme. I rode in 2021. Since then, they've repainted it, and I get it. This is a classic aero looper. This is a classic aero looper with kind of your like just a traditional like I think there's 2 vertical loops and a double corkscrew. Um, but like I don't understand why this one was just so ridiculously rough when I rode it. Like I even tried to keep my head back against the headrest. Like that's what I typically do on these old school aero loopers, and usually they're fine. But this seemed to be a big exception. And I remember shortly after writing that when they were like repainting it, and I'm thinking like that's not going to do anything to save the ride. Like it's going to make it look cooler, but it's still going to be a crappy roller coaster. Like it was just I didn't find it very enjoyable. In my opinion, it is one of the worst coasters I've ridden. I'm sure there's plenty of coasters out there that are worse than it, but I just did not find it to be a pleasant experience at all, in my opinion. Matthew said valid to one of my takes. I appreciate that. One of my takes was valid. 219 spot. This is a coaster in the same park, like kind of right by this coaster, from what I remember. Carolina Gold Rusher at Carowinds. And this is a old school aero mine train. And it was just, I think, kind of similar thing here. It was ridiculously jerky. Like, I don't know why. At least this one like didn't have over the shoulder restraints, but I just did not find it pleasant. I really did not find it that pleasant. Like it was it was just I feel like it was really rough. But this is an aero mine train opened in 1973. Like, don't get me wrong, it's like another classic aero ride. And I think it's one of the oldest rides at Carowinds. Like I think this is around the time Carowinds like first opened. But it was just super jerky. I also remember this was kind of freaky. Like there was some like head chopper moments low key. Like I low key had to like duck a little bit. I think at some point in the ride. Because even though I'm not like super tall, but like I still had, like I felt like I was gonna hit my head. So I don't know. Maybe it was just me, but just kind of a crazy head chopper moment that I remember. These next ones I'm gonna kind of group in together. So 218, 217, 216, 215. Okay, these next 4. So this is Kitty Hawk at Carowinds, Flying School at Legoland. So Carowinds, North Carolina, South Carolina. Flying School at Legoland, Florida, in Winter Haven, Florida. Woodstock's Air Rail, I guess that's what it's called now. I think it was called something else when I wrote it. At Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. And Swamp Thing at Wild Adventures in Valdosta, Georgia. These are all from what I remember, cloned layouts. They are Vekoma. It's a suspended family coasters, known in the coaster community as hangin' bangs. That's what they call, because like this person mentions hangin' bang, and I feel like I remember this one in particular being the worst one. Actually, I don't know if it was this one or the Kings Island one, but I remember both of those weren't that good. I'm gonna keep clicking on this, by the way, just because I want to keep checking my stream. Also, we're getting pretty close. I want to mention we're getting pretty close to 300 subs, so I really appreciate that if we're able to hit 20 more subs, but I feel like my channel's been growing a bit, so I appreciate the support. Just want to point that out. So like these are all like the same clone like family suspended coaster ride. My biggest pet peeve with these is that some of these have like no padding on the headrest. It's just hard, like a hard plastic or whatever it is. So that's really frustrating because it's like you want to put your head back to avoid like any sort of like shakiness and head banging on like the over the shoulder restraints. But problem is if you do that, your head is like probably hitting the back seat and it's not comfortable. I feel like one of them had one of those headrests, but the rest of them didn't. So that's just something I found very frustrating. So I'm not a big fan of this coaster model. I'm glad that Vekoma has stepped up their game in terms of suspended coasters. And speaking of which, we're going to go to something a little more thrilling, but no better. This is, when I wrote this, it was Mind Eraser. This says it's Professor Screamore's Skywinder. I didn't write it as that. I wrote it as Mind Eraser. This is at the now defunct Six Flags America in Bowie, Maryland. I visited this park in 2022. Unfortunately, this park, which I did find to be an underrated park, shut down late last year, I think around November. So, rest in peace, this park. There was some good coasters at this park. This was certainly not one of them when I wrote it. Now, I do believe they changed the restraints, and that might have made this ride a little better. But when I wrote it, it had the traditional over-the-shoulder restraints. And this was the first Vekoma SLC, that's what it's called, suspended looping coaster that I rode. And I guess kind of same for this commenter. Yeah, and this made me very much see where the ride model gets its reputation from, because it was just not a pleasant experience. Lots of headbanging, just very rough ride experience. Here's the thing. I'll give the SLC layouts credit because the layouts themselves, the way they're designed, like, they're intense layouts. Like, they have those moments of intensity. Like, they would be good layouts if Vekoma at this time had figured out how to make a smooth coaster. Like, a modern, like, suspended looping coaster from Vekoma, because they make them super smooth now. If it had the same exact clone layout, it would be a banger of a coaster, in my opinion. It would be an awesome coaster. But the track on these are just really rough. The restraints are super thick and uncomfortable, unless they have the vest restraints, I guess. Although I've only ridden 2 of these, this is one of those 2. So yeah, just not a good ride. But I will miss this. I will miss this park as a whole, though, and there will be some more coasters from this park on my list. So that's at the 214th spot, just above the Hang and Bangs. So just above that. I don't even think this was a bad coaster. I probably ranked it lower than I should have. Actually, what's up, Zach? By the way, I don't know how long ago you joined, but I'm live on YouTube if you want to join that. So actually, I might group these next 2. Yeah, I'm gonna group these next 2 together, kind of, even though they're a bit different. They're both called Corkscrew, from Aerodynamics. The 213th spot, that's at Nagashima Spa Land in Japan. So, I guess the first non-American coaster on this list. And then this one's at Cedar Point in Ohio. So, I'll go over the Nagashima Spa Land one first. Just classic aero looper opened in 1979. I think this one just had kind of a boring layout. Like, that was my kind of deal with it. Like, it's iconic, very picturesque, and I appreciate that, but I feel like there's just not a lot to this coaster. You just have a drop, a little turn, double corkscrew, and it's not terrible if you keep your head back, but it's also not like butter smooth either. It's an old aero looper. I just thought it was kind of a boring ride, but yeah, at least it looks kind of cool. So, but still kind of below the top 200 of my rankings, I guess you'll say. And then, by the way, sorry if I'm like sniffling at all. Like I've just kind of recovered from being sick. So, yeah. So I apologize if I sound funny or anything. But so then this one, also called Corkscrew, is at Cedar Point. This one might have been a little rough, but like it wasn't that bad. Like I was able to keep my head back and it was fine. This one's even older. This opened in 1976. Similar thing with just a double corkscrew, but the layout's slightly different. This one's even more picturesque because you walk right under it, like, because it goes right over the walkway through the double corkscrew element. Also, this one has a vertical loop, which is cool. I'm forgetting if the other one did or not. I don't know if it did. I mean, I could check our CDB. I should probably leave this tab open, by the way. Okay. Yeah, this one just had a double corkscrew. Yeah. Um, how am I? Okay. Sorry if my, like, hair's in my face. Um, so, yeah, again, just kind of a boring layout, but this one's still pretty iconic, still pretty cool ride, but not an amazing coaster. 211. This one's kind of hard for me to rank, but Dahlonega. I probably should not say it like that. Okay, Dahlonega. I guess I don't know how to pronounce that. Um, YouTube, please don't demonetize me if I mispronounced that. I did not mean it that way. Um, but anyway, this is a old school aero mine train from 1967, and I rode this back in 2014. I just remember it being a janky old like mine train. I can't imagine it's that good of a mine train, honestly, from what I've heard. But interesting, really ride. Like, yeah, this says janky transitions, rough ride, even dead spots. Um, People say it's the worst aero mine train, so it might even rank lower if I rewrote it. But who knows? But either way, not the greatest mine train I've ridden, clearly. Um, yeah. And then 210. I rode this when I was really little. Guess my first CCI Woody, technically. This is Cheetah, the now defunct Cheetah, at Wild Adventures in Valdosta, Georgia. This was a CCI wooden coaster operated from 2001 to 2020, from what I'm aware. Um, I was hoping they would RMC this, by the way, but they never did. They just tore it down. Like, it didn't get the RMC treatment, it got the deletion treatment, as I think coaster YouTuber DZ Ride said. But anyway, yeah. I was really little when I rode this. I didn't even like coasters at the time. I was like 6 or 7 years old. Like, but genuinely, I was that old. Um, and I just remember it being like I was scared of it at the time because it was a big scary coaster and it was really fast, big drops and stuff. It was just intense for me at the time, but I also feel like I feel like I remember it being like really rough, and from what I've heard, it was like a super rough CCI Woody. Like, I'm sure the layout would have been fun if it was smoother, but I just heard it was just really like the ride was just terribly rough, and from the POVs I've seen, it looks like it runs on square wheels. But I will never get to re-experience this because it closed down quite a few years back before this channel even started. But I did revisit Wild Adventures to ride some of the other rides I missed out on recently, but obviously this couldn't be one of them because it's closed. So, but um, I feel like it's still like an interesting like niche credit that I have, but it wasn't a super good one. Coming up next is 209th spot. This was actually a relocation from Wild Adventures, and then it might have also been relocated from a park before that. But it is currently operating as Hurricane at Fun Spot Kissimmee in Kissimmee, Florida. Um, this is an ENF Miler coaster. This is super janky. I rode this back in 2021, like right before I started this channel. Super janky coaster. It is very interesting though. There's a lot of sharp turns, airtime moments, but just it's just not a very comfortable ride. Like you can have fun on this coaster, but you really got to brace yourself for like the super rough transitions, in my opinion. Like, it's got mad awkward banking. Like, especially that first drop is just terribly profiled, in my opinion. Can I like zoom in on the photos? Yeah, I should have done that earlier. I don't know if it's as clear, but yeah, that is not a smooth drop right there. But still an interesting ride for sure. Matthew said, I want to go to Wild Adventures one day. It looks nice. Um, it's an interesting park. Like I'm not gonna say it's a bad park because it's like I like certain aspects of it. Like I like how it's kind of like you've got like the wildlife and stuff. I like how it's kind of like a niche, like more under the radar park sort of. But you got to set your expectations kind of low. I'm gonna be honest, just because like all the rides there are just like clones, basically. Their standouts are an SLC and the Boomerang. I feel like the Boomerang there is kind of fun though, and we'll get to those rides eventually. But like Boomerang's fun. The SLC can be fun, but it's not smooth. Like it could also it depends on what kind of like how much you're willing to tolerate in a ride. But we'll get to that later. It's a it's an interesting park, and I do kind of wish more enthusiasts would check it out. Um, but at the same time, they really need to like find a way. Hershen really needs to do something about its ride lineup so that it can be more noticed. Because like again, like they don't have like they don't have like a really good standout coaster there right now. So it's kind of unfortunate in my opinion. But yeah. Anyway, uh, kind of mentioned that was kind of gave my review of Hurricane. 208 Matterhorn bobsleds. Yes, it ranks pretty low. Theming's really cool. This is an iconic Disney coaster. This in Disneyland, California. It's an Aero, I guess technically Aero development coaster. Um, it iconic coaster, first coaster with tubular steel track, opened in 1959. However, from my last ride on this in 2023, this coaster has not aged super well. It is a very jerky and rough ride. Like yeah, it says rough and uncomfortable janky track, and it kind of makes it like out of place as a Disney coaster. Like as a result, like it's like in my opinion, obviously like with the place it has in history, like its iconic ride, I don't think it needs to go because it's an iconic Disney coaster and a very iconic coaster in the history of coasters. However, I personally, my last ride on it, like, I can't say I really enjoyed it, besides, like, maybe the theming, just because of how rough it is, just my personal opinion. Um, you said gotcha, probably referring to my, Wild Adventures review, or my little opinions on Wild Adventures. 207th spot is Coast Rider at Knott's Berry Farm, Buena Park, California. Some mock wild mouse. The reason it ranks this low is because it has some of the worst restraints imaginable. Now, what do I mean by this? Like, how could you mess up wild mouse restraints? The shin guards are actually the worst. Like, they're really high up, and I think it was like a thin, hard bar from what I remember. I rode this like last year. Um, it was like it's gonna like I think I had to like tuck my legs in maybe like because it was just gonna it will like dig into like your like not even your shins I think but like it'll dig into your legs like you'd have to experience it, you'd have to see what the lap bar is like to know how bad it is. Like wonder if I can even look it up. Let me see. Coast Rider Knots restraints. If that works. Like I wish I could show you like how bad the restraints are. Like I don't know how well you could see in this photo. Or I'll say this photo. You can't really see it. It's like right there's where there's just like a terrible shin guard. Like I don't know if like where my cursor is. Like imagine right there a thin metal bar like shin guard. It doesn't look as bad as it was. It was not good. It was not good at all. So this wouldn't be such a terrible coaster. I just hate that it has the worst shin guard I've ever seen on a coaster. Just like terrible design in my opinion. So here's that one. 206. This is roller coaster at Hanayashiki, or dude, I might not be saying this right. Hanayashiki in I'm trying to remember. I'm gonna like I'm worried I'm gonna mispronounce something. It was I might need a RCDB in Asakusa, Tokyo, Japan, basically. This is the oldest coaster in Japan. It's a Togo, opened in 1953, so definitely a piece of history I love on your other account. Um, and it was just like it was just kind of janky. I'm not gonna lie. It's a cool piece of Japanese coaster history, like that's for sure. And really cool that it's like kind of in like this historic part of Tokyo, right by like I think it was right by the I want to say the Sensoji Temple, was it? Maybe. It was right by an iconic temple in Asakusa, Tokyo. Um, but could be you said haha, I got it. Are you talking about the you joined the stream or I don't know, like join the Instagram stream. Um, but yeah, it just wasn't amazing. It's a cool relic, but nothing amazing. Um, some of these I rank pretty low. Um, this is Jaguar, 205th spot is Jaguar at Knott's Berry Farm. This is a Zero family coaster. This ride is just really janky, like, and it wasn't like, yeah, it was kind of boring too. Just wasn't a smooth ride, and usually I don't complain that much about Zero coasters. It's the Zero Tivoli or Tivoli, however you pronounce it. Someone said, "What is the point of this ride?" That's kind of true. It is kind of a pointless ride. Um, it's interesting, but interesting does not always mean that it's like interesting doesn't like equate to good, and it doesn't even equate to the ride having a purpose really. So it's just kind of a weird ride, just low key mad janky, and just wasn't a huge fan. You said pronunciation is good. That's good. Looks like my semester of taking Japanese in college might have paid off. I'm assuming you're talking about my pronunciation of Asakusa Hanayashiki. I might have gotten that off. I don't know though. Uh, but yeah. Plus my visit to Japan last year. But anyway, moving on. 204th spot. No, I can't lump those together. 204th spot. Galaxy Spin. Fun spot Kissimmee. In Florida. This is Zamperla. I think Rivertron also made these, but this is Zamperla spinning coaster. This one was interesting because it had lap bars instead of like the over-the-shoulder ones restraints. But I just didn't find it to be like amazing. I feel like I found the way. I don't know how to describe it. It I just didn't care for it that much, in my opinion. Um, yeah, the spins might have not been that great, and it just might have not been a super comfortable ride. Like it's not that it was rough, but it just might not have been like it says like it's not a rough coaster. I just think it was kind of uncomfortable and it didn't spin like crazy. And I think the restraints might have been part of that, but I'm not quite sure. Um, yeah, basically. And then moving on, 203. Um, there's two Flight of Fears I've ridden. This one's significantly worse than the other one. This is Flight of Fear at Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. It's a Premier Rides. I believe it's an LIM launch coaster, because modern one would be like LSM. Opened in 1996. This was weirdly jerky. Like it was unusually jerky. Like yeah, this acknowledges rough ride. It was a rough ride. The restraints. It's not even the restraints. It just had lap bars. Um, like I find the modern Premier lap bars even worse. But it was just yeah, headaches from transitions. It was just not a smooth ride. Like I was anticipating, oh, this is gonna be fun. It's in the dark. This is gonna be a lot like Rock and Roller Coaster. Um, it's gonna have that intensity, have those inversions and stuff. Um, Plus the theming was cool. Theming was really cool in like the queue, especially. But it just wasn't a comfortable ride. I don't get it. Like Premiere made a really janky layout for the Kings Island version of this ride. Um, so that's that one. 202 Howler at Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. This is the Zamperla coaster. It's literally a kiddie coaster. The reason I rank it this low is because it's a kiddie coaster, and I rode it as an adult. So yeah, it was just a really short, kind of janky layout from Zamperla. Kind of just goes up like a booster lift hill, goes down a drop, goes up, does this little helix, and then like a turnaround, and it goes around its layout like 2 or 3 times, I think. Opened in 1999. Yeah, just a little kiddie coaster at Holiday World. So yeah, moving on. This is a really niche coaster credit in my opinion. This is Voyage dans le ciel at Fuji-Q Island in Japan. This is a. Should I try to pronounce this? Please forgive me with my pronunciation if I butcher this. Hoi Sangyo. It's something like that. So very niche coaster manufacturer. What else has this manufacturer done? I guess probably exclusively just a few Japan coasters. Like let me see something. Yeah, it's a Japanese manufacturer. They've built 31 coasters with 17 of those still existing and operating, it looks like. And why can't I find it? Oh, here it is. Yeah. And this is the one I rode. This opened 2000. This is like a kiddie slash family suspended coaster. Very interesting. My biggest complaint with this ride were the mid courses. It slammed to the brakes. Like those mid courses slam on the brakes and it's not comfortable. It's also kind of weird is if you're riding with another person, you have to like lap sit, which is very interesting. But it's also meant to be like a kiddie coaster sort of. Um, Very interesting. I thought the IP it was themed to was interesting. It is I'm trying to remember what it's based on. Like what? It's Gaspard et Lisa. So funny, it's got kind of got like a French theme on a Japanese roller coaster. It looks like. I guess it used to have a different theme though. So this is from 2001. So yeah, I guess they rethemed it probably around 2017. It looks like. So that's kind of the situation there. So moving on, 200. So this is the so now we're in the top 200, I guess. Um, this is Pteranodon Flyers at Islands of Adventure in Orlando, Florida. This is Set Point Attractions ride. I rode this when I was tiny, so I hardly remember this, but I imagine it would only rank this high. Like, I maybe a little higher, but yeah, rare credit gang. I remember riding this, but I was super little if I did. So I'm counting this as a credit, but I'm not going to be able to ride this again unless I have like a little kid with me, but I don't think that's going to happen for a while. So that's why this is such a rare credit is because of the height restrictions on this coaster. I think it's where if you're above 56 inches, you have to ride with a little kid, I guess. So, and obviously I'm well above 56 inches. So, yeah. Just it seems like a cool ride, but you'd have to ride with someone and probably lap sitting or something like that, right? Or actually, yeah, maybe. I'm not fu- I'm not fully sure, but yeah. But another rare credit, I guess. 199. This is Super Grover's Boxcar Derby at SeaWorld Orlando in Florida. A Zero family coaster. Zero Force, I guess is the model. Opened 2006. When I first rode this, it was Shamu Express, I think. But I have ridden it with its like Sesame Street theme. And it's kind of janky a little bit, but it's not terrible. It's just a little kiddie coaster, really. not a whole lot to say about this one. Just kind of a boring little like kiddie coaster. I actually kind of miss the Shamu Express theming, even if it wasn't like the IP it is now. Even if now you've got like the whole Sesame Street themed area. Uh, there was something I liked about like the Shamu theming. Just thought that was cool back in the day. 198. This is slightly inaccurate. I just couldn't find the right listing on Captain Coaster's website. Um, it is a wacky worm. It is a Fahume model, but it is not the one at Uncle Bernie's theme park. It is the one. I believe it's now defunct as of pretty recently, or within the past few years. It is this one. This is Wacky Worm at Adventure Landing in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. So I actually grew up going to like the water park here, like during like the summer and stuff. But then there would be kind of that rare occasion where I would ride this. This was kind of a separate upcharge experience, if that makes sense. So this apparently operated from 2005 to 2022. That's probably around the time the park closed. Actually, apparently, or maybe the park was open until 2025, I guess. But it is a Fahume Wacky Worm. This is a heavily cloned ride model. Like, trying to see. Like, yeah, there's a hell of a lot of Wacky Worm coasters. From what I understand. Maybe not all from this manufacturer. This manufacturer only built 22 of them, I guess. But yeah, this was is this an older photo or no? Yeah, this is from 2006. Okay. Um but yeah, it's not this a terrible coaster. It's just a little wacky worm. Like I thought it was fun just cuz it was like oh, it's just this a little janky wacky worm. But it's a very tame layout in itself. You go up a little lift hill, you turn around, do some like tiny like little like dips here, sort of like dips, like a few dips like up and down, turn around, this tiny little drop, then a turn around in the station. I think it runs like a couple more times, and that's it. So very unfortunate that I guess Jacksonville, Florida no longer has an operating coaster credit from what I'm aware, but you know, still pretty cool niche credit of mine. From what I've gathered, pretty niche credit, being honest. So now we've got Coastersaurus at Legoland, California. It's a Gerstlauer coaster. This is actually a steel coaster. I rode this in 2023. Opened in 2004. Not really that good of a picture. But yeah, it's just a little kiddie coaster, pretty much. It might have gone around like at least twice. It was a pretty smooth ride. It was just kind of a boring layout, like very small little layout, but still an interesting ride. Interesting how this one's a steel one, whereas the other one I've ridden is a wooden one, but we'll get to that. But yeah, this is in Carlsbad, California, Legoland over there. So yeah. Anyway, 196 is Outpost Express at Wild Adventures. Actually, let me see if I can group these next ones. Yeah, okay, I'm going to group these next few. So, 196 to 191. We've got Outpost Express at Wild Adventures in Valdosta, Georgia. Trolls Troller Coaster at Universal Studios Florida in Orlando. Although I don't think I've ridden this since it was the Woody Woodpecker theme. Hollyhock and Roll at Kentucky Kingdom, Louisville. We've got Barnstormer at Magic Kingdom in Lake Buena Vista, Florida. And you've got Chippendale's Gadget Coaster at Disneyland, California. And you've got Flight of the Hippogriff at Islands of Adventure in Orlando. These are all like Vekoma Junior coasters, basically. So they're just kind of janky, but they're also nothing crazy, you know. A lot of people's first coaster might end up being like a Vekoma Junior coaster, or at least one of them. So many parks have them. Some of them are cool because of the theming. I actually really like Barnstormer, in my opinion. Like, I think it's like, out of those, I think that one's kind of cool because of the theming, but it is a little out of place in a Disney park, in my opinion. I think same kind of goes for Chippendale's Gadget Coaster. And Flight of the Hippogriff, it's cool that it's in the, like, this one's much bigger than the other ones, from what I've gathered. And so it's I feel like this one's slightly more thrilling, and it's you've got a better view, like, with the castle and stuff. But there's another Flight of the Hippogriff at another Universal park that is that is a lot less janky and, like, in my opinion, like a much better ride than that one. So yeah, these are just little junior coasters. They're not that great, but yeah. Anyway, 190. You've got Viper at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This is an Arrow Mega Looper, the last of its kind, basically. It was a rough coaster, pretty janky. But it's a unique ride, and I can kind of appreciate that. But it just wasn't very comfortable. Opened in 1990. So definitely an iconic ride, but just not my favorite. Like, that first drop is very jerky. Some of the inversions are really jerky. Some head banging on it, but I think it's a cool ride to look at for sure, and it's a very unique kind of ride, and I wouldn't be mad if Six Flags keeps this around for a while still, just cause it's kind of like the last of its kind, sort of. But it's just not the most enjoyable. Hot take at 189 is Magnum XL 200. In my opinion, I was not crazy about this Aero Hypercoaster. This is actually the first hypercoaster, at least with a complete circuit layout. Opened in 1989, and this opened way back then as the tallest and fastest full circuit roller coaster. And I think this kind of credited it for, like, really kicking off, like, the coaster wars from, like, probably 1989 to, like, 2005 or somewhere around there, maybe 2010. And I get it. This coaster has really good airtime moments, especially lots of airtime in its finale. But I found this coaster has some really janky elements, some really jerky moments. And the big problem I had was with the finale, it has a lot of airtime. But the problem is, I feel bad having this complaint as a coaster enthusiast, but it has almost too much airtime than the ride can handle. Because they're basically like triangle hills, basically. But the problem is you've got this little lap bar, so while you've got great airtime moments, they're also pretty painful. And I think when your airtime moments get too painful, it can be a bit much. I'm trying to see, did I miss any notifications? No, I didn't. But yeah, I know people say this, like, there's some people that say this like one of the best coasters ever. I am definitely not one of those people. It's not the worst coaster ever, pretty far from it, but I I just didn't find it very enjoyable. Like, it's a pretty rough coaster, and it's not very comfortable with, like, the trains on, like, the final hills, in my opinion. Like, I feel like it could have been pulled off so much better. Gordon Coaster says, Barnstormer was my first ever coaster. I think that's really cool. It was probably one of my first coasters ever. It was either, mine probably would have been either one of, like, the Florida, like, Vekoma Junior coasters, or it would have been like Big Thunder Mountain at Disney, maybe. But I think that's really cool. That's a really cool first coaster. And again, it was probably one of my first too. So yeah. Anyway, 188, kind of niche for an American. Because this ride model is basically, there's like a few of them exclusively in Japan, I think. This is Ultra Twister. At Nagashima Spa Land in Japan. It's the Togo Ultra Twister. It's really cool because you're kind of surrounded by the track, like you're kind of inside the track. I can't say it's a super comfortable ride, but it's got an interesting layout. Like I think I had some issues. I think I had some issues with, like, it might have been the restraints. Like, I think the restraints might have hurt my shoulders, maybe. I think that was kind of the biggest discomfort. But it does have a very unique layout because you gotta vertical lift, basically vertical drop. Uh, Airtime hill got like an inline twist. Uh, Go up, then you tilt back, and I think there's a couple twists, like there's a couple barrel rolls there too. And it's a very cool kind of ride, very cool concept of ride, but I just didn't find it to be the most comfortable. So, just kind of my personal opinion about that. 187 Slinky Dog Dash. Now, hear me out. This is a smooth ride. I'm sure this would be a great first coaster if you're a little kid. If you were a little kid, I would actually recommend this as a first coaster because it's smooth, it's not too intense, but it's also got like a launch, which is fun. You could say it's fun, like if you're like a little kid. But in my opinion, as a coaster enthusiast, this is a really boring coaster. In my opinion, I think the theming is pretty cool. I think it goes well with the Toy Story themed area, but I just don't find it to be thrilling. Not to mention, it gets really long queue times, and in my opinion, it's not ever worth the wait it typically gets. So it's not that it's like a terrible like rough coaster. It's just super boring in my opinion. I don't find it to be super thrilling in my opinion. Maybe the first half like has a kind of cool twister section, but it's not going to be very forceful for like anyone who's like a big fan of like big thrilling coasters, in my opinion. 186, you've got Snoopy's Tender Paw Twister Coaster at Knott's Berry Farm. It's a Zamperla coaster. I think this is kind of a cool kiddie coaster because you've got kind of a launch in the middle. Like you've got a drive tire launch, but obviously it's not a crazy launch. You can even get like the speed stats on this. Like, it's a smooth ride, but it's a little kiddie coaster. Like you can't expect a whole lot. It's a pretty new ride though. It's a pretty new coaster. But but it's again, it's a very tiny kiddie coaster, so I rank it pretty low for that reason. 185 Iron Dragon. I think like this isn't a bad ride, but I think I just found it like it was a little rattly and it wasn't a very forceful ride in my opinion. Like it's cool how it goes over the lake and stuff. And you get good like views of the park and stuff. Like it's not a terrible ride. I'm in 1987. This is a Aero like suspended coaster. But out of I think there's two of them that I've ridden. Out of those two, this I just didn't like. I didn't care for nearly as much because it wasn't nearly as thrilling as the other one I've ridden. Uh, okay. Hope I didn't miss these. Um, Ariana said Ultra Twister is bottom five. I don't blame you for that because like I do remember it was pretty uncomfortable on the shoulders, so that was probably kind of the biggest issue there. Um, so I don't blame you for that opinion. Um, but I've ridden some pretty bad coasters. That's why it ranks a little higher. And yeah, we got the Snoopy ride. That's right. I enjoyed those 5 seconds on that ride. Probably on the Snoopy ride. Yeah. Um, not gonna lie. Yeah, it was just a very, very tame, very tame coaster. Um, and then 184 Pony Express at Knott's. This is Zamperla coaster. Um, Out of the few Zamperlas I've ridden, this is my favorite, but that's not saying a lot. I don't really care that much for Zamperla as a manufacturer, but this one is at least pretty smooth, from what I remember. But this is another one where it's just not super thrilling of a layout. Like it's kind of a boring layout, not super intense, not super strong forces. I think the racing aspect of it, or like the fact that it was kind of like a moto coaster, like a motorbike coaster. You can see kind of the seating position there. I thought that was cool, but I feel like it's my least favorite of these kind of coasters because it just didn't do a whole lot for me. Just my personal opinion. Um, just being honest. And then 183 Blazing Fury at Dollywood. This is a This is kind of more of a dark ride, but it is a say cult associated with this ride. I did not know that. Um, Opened in 1978. This is a classic. I think that might have been when the park was still like Silver Dollar City, Tennessee, before Dolly Parton got involved. But who manufactured this coaster? I'm low-key forgetting. It might have been in-house. This might have been an in-house coaster, um, from what I'm aware. Um, is it still operating? It's still operating. It just went SPNO for a little bit, probably like refurbishment or some. I think like there were some drops that were decently thrilling, but it's more of a dark ride, and it can be a little janky on those parts. Cool theming, but as a coaster, it is definitely far from my favorite, and definitely not my favorite ride in the park. It's almost a little bit. It's kind of spooky just because of how old it is too, but um, still kind of interesting. I don't know why my chat's doing that, but oh well. 182, we've got Air Grover, at Busch Gardens, Tampa, in Tampa, Florida. So it's another Zero Force coaster. Just a little kiddie coaster. I think this can be kind of fun in like the back row. Um, it's got a little bit of jankiness and shakiness, but it's not that bad. It's really not that bad. Like it's kind of smooth. Um, like all things considered, but it can be a little like it can have a slight like janky like shake to it. It's a very tiny coaster, but can be kind of fun. I think it's better than the Vekoma Junior coasters. Just my personal opinion. 181. I guess I kind of separated these ones. There's probably a reason for that. I'm forgetting why though. 181 Dragon at Legoland, Florida. Low-key forgetting why I separated them uh, a bit. But just a Vekoma, this at the Winter Haven, Florida location. Just a Vekoma Junior coaster in terms of its coaster layout, but the first half of it is a dark ride, pretty much. And I think it's really cool with all the Lego like medieval theming with like the dragon. I kind of like how it starts as a dark ride and then becomes a kiddie coaster. I think there should be more like kiddie and family coasters that are like that have like the first half is like a themed dark ride and the second half you've got like a coaster layout. Like I just think that's really cool. I think the same thing can go, even though I know I'm skipping this for now, like for a moment. Same can kind of go for this, but for whatever reason, I thought this one was not as good as the next one on this list. And this one is Flight of the Hippogriff at Universal Studios Hollywood in California. So Universal actually went with Mach Rides to make this, and much later than this was built much later than the other Flight of the Hippogriff was. I think the Flight of the Hippogriff in Florida was actually rethemed from like, let me see something. Like, let me look at the Islands of Adventure one. Yeah, this was originally like Flying Unicorn. I think it was like a different themed area before the Harry Potter IP came in. Um, this one actually had a smooth ride. Like this one had a smooth layout, and you're able to enjoy it more. Whereas the one in Florida is a little janky because of the Vekoma clone layout. Um, and it was a little jerkier. I feel like this one, if you're a little kid riding this for the first time, you're gonna enjoy it a lot more and be less scared of the like jankiness because it's gonna be a smoother ride on this one. So I just enjoy this one a lot more than the Florida counterpart. So there's that. Kind of give my thoughts on this one. 178. This is Coaster Source in Florida. I haven't ridden this since I was 8. Basically, I haven't been to Legoland Florida since I was just under 8 years old. The California park I actually visited just a few years ago, but I haven't been to, even though that one's much further from home than this one. Um, I haven't been to the Florida Legoland Park in a while. I just haven't had an incentive to go because it is kind of a family oriented, like kind of a kids park. I'd be down to go back, but I think tickets are kind of expensive. Um, but anyway, it's opened in 2004. It's a kind of a niche, like, I guess, a manufacturer here. A Martin and Vleminix wooden coaster. I'm gonna look this up on RCDB. So, yeah, the other one was a Gerstlauer steel, like, kitty coaster. This one's actually a wooden family coaster from this manufacturer. Guess he builds 17 coasters. This is actually a company from Quebec. It's a Canadian company. And I guess they have other coasters as well, but um, they made Boardwalk Bullet. I didn't know that. Okay, that's interesting. I haven't ridden Boardwalk Bullet though, but I remember it just being like a solid ride. Plus, I think it's got GCI trains, which is cool. So yeah, it's a cool little kiddie coaster, one of the few wooden coasters in Florida. And I remember it being probably the most fun ride at Legoland, Florida. So just what I've kind of gathered there. Not gonna lie. 177. I'll probably rank this a little higher than I need to. It's Hurler at Carowinds. Okay, this says it's a rough ride. I don't know if it runs rougher now. I want to make this clear. So when I wrote it, I was worried I wasn't gonna like this because of like it being a rough ride. That was not the case. I didn't find this to be significantly rougher than like the wooden coasters that I enjoy. This is a coaster from International Coasters, one of two clone coasters they've made, and I think the only one existing. Opened in 1994, and for some reason it's still operating. Yeah, this one was RMC'd, and this one I wish would get RMC'd. I don't know why it won't go back. This has the most boring layout on a wooden coaster I've ever ridden. It's ridiculously boring. You've got the drop, and then from then on it just meanders. You've got hills that have no airtime, no forces. It's just a pointless ride, and it's right next to Fury, basically. It's right next to Fury 325. So obviously this is gonna pale in comparison. So I don't know what's forcing Carowinds to keep this coaster around. Like this is like I just have a problem with how ridiculously boring this ride is. Like I'm sure every enthusiast could care less if they just completely scrap this thing. I don't even care if they RMC it. Like it just has no point in the park. Like at least replace it with like anything else. Basically, it's again, it's not even a rough ride. It's just boring and completely pointless. So that's ridiculous. Just my opinion. 176, Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts. I'm probably rating this a little too low, but this is at Universal Studios Florida in Orlando. It's an Intamin coaster, indoor coaster. I think it's a cool dark ride. I just, I don't know. Like, I just feel like it's more of a dark ride than a coaster. Like I like the tilt track drop. Like I think that's a very thrilling part of the ride. But I feel like the coaster aspects of the ride get kind of boring after that. I mean, there's kind of a cool launch towards the end of the ride, and it does spin, which is cool. But in my opinion, it's nothing crazy. I also don't care for the restraints. The restraints are kind of the lap bars can be a little thigh crushing, in my opinion. Too many screens is also kind of true. It's just kind of you have some small coaster parts, and then you're just watching screens of like the Harry Potter characters. Really cool theming, but I feel like I feel like in a way it's just kind of an overrated ride. They go all out with the theming, but it's really more of just kind of a little dark ride, universal dark ride, than a um than like a big coaster. Also, what's up on my Insta stream? I actually rode this when I first opened in 2014, and I've ridden it several times since then. But I think it also just doesn't do a lot for me other than the tilt track drop. And like I said, yeah, the coaster sections are just too short, and they're other than the tilt track drop, it's nothing crazy. Um, I think I missed your one message, unless I read it earlier. I think I missed your one message, so I don't know. But anyway, Corny Coasters said, me and my friend made a vlog at Legoland Florida and had a lot of fun. Should go back sometime, especially for Galactic Coaster. Did they add, hold on, I haven't been up to date on, Legoland Florida, I guess you could say. By the way, if you ever come back to Florida, we need to do another like park vlog. Not gonna lie. But anyway, yeah, this opened this year. This opened very recently. It's an art engineering coaster, an adventure coaster. I do gotta check this out. I low-key would check this out, I'm not gonna lie. But I don't know, I could visit. I'm not like terribly far from Legoland, but I'm, you know, but it's been a really long time since I've been back. Maybe I should go with Adiana or something. But yeah. Also, I think I forgot to mention, but Michael Carter said hello, so welcome to the stream if you're still there. So anyway, there's that. So that might be kind of a hot take, but I'm not crazy about Escape from Gringotts for some reason. I don't know why. But 175 Trailblazer at Hershey Park. This is another Aero Mine Train. Opened in 1974. Trying to remember, it might have had some jank to it, but I don't think it was terribly rough. But it also I don't think it was super thrilling. Like, I don't remember my exact complaints about it, but like, it was okay, but it's just not my favorite mine train. It's kind of a short ride, you know. It's just really nothing crazy. Didn't do a lot for me personally. Cool little credit though. Dude, we should make another vlog sometime. We should. I really enjoyed when we saw each other at SeaWorld. So we definitely need to meet up at a park again, especially if you come back to Florida, or if I ever make it up to Virginia, then we do got to meet up. So, technically I'm a BGW pass holder. But that's also because I'm a pass holder to all the SeaWorld and Busch Gardens parks. So, uh, technically speaking. Um, but anyway, 174 is another Aero Mine Train. Cedar Creek Mine Ride at Cedar Point in Ohio, Sandusky, Ohio. And this one is slightly older, opened in 1969, so pretty old, pretty unk attraction. This one I think was a little more uncomfortable, but like it was, in my opinion, it was more interesting. Like it went over the lake and stuff. Um, Kind of cool. Maybe I think the layout was a little more interesting in my opinion, but it was pretty jerky in my opinion. So like, it wasn't terrible. I found some enjoyment in it at the time, and it's very scenic, but could be a much better coaster in my opinion. Like it's definitely aged, but low key better than Magnum though. Better than Magnum, and I know that's probably a crazy opinion in the coaster community, but that's just my personal opinion. I just did not care for Magnum that much, just being honest. But anyway, excuse me. 173, we've got Great American Scream Machine at Six Flags Over Georgia in Austell, Georgia. It's old school PTC Woody, opened 1973. I hear people have a lot of complaints about this ride. I rode it when I was little, and I remember it being better than Georgia Cyclone, better than Ninja, but it was a rough wooden coaster. I don't think it doesn't seem like a terrible coaster. It's got that classic Woody layout, but it was pretty rough from what I remember. I wonder if they've retracked it or something. I might have heard about a retrack, but I don't know. I kind of doubt it too. Um, but yeah, just wasn't amazing. Like I don't know. If I rode again, maybe it would rank lower, but I'm not sure. This person says it runs like a shopping cart going down a hill made of nothing but pebbles. That's honestly one of the most hilarious uh, coaster reviews I've heard. But anyway, next ones I'm probably gonna group. Yeah, these next three I'm gonna group together. These are some wild mice, you could say. One of them's Mauer, two of them are muck rides. You've got Marsh Mayhem at Wild Adventures, you've got Sand Serpent at Busch Gardens Tampa, and you've got Ricochet at Carowinds. So these are all like the same clone layout. You've got those hairpin turns and stuff. Yeah, they're just wild mouse layout, nothing crazy, although the hairpin turns do have some crazy laterals, but they're not the most comfortable rides, but you know, they can have a little bit of thrill factor with the hairpin turns. So, yeah, just nothing crazy, just traditional wild mouse roller coasters. And then 169, we've got Vortex. This is This is one of two stand-up coasters I've ridden, and it's the one like traditional stand-up, and I think you'll kind of figure out why that is later on. I think this is also one of the first B&M coasters, or one of the oldest ones, opened in 1992. I've heard people talk like this the worst coaster, like the one of the worst coasters ever. I didn't find it to be terrible for some of the reasons people complain. Like people say it's really rough with headbanging and stuff. Um, I didn't find that to be the case. I didn't find that to be the case. I didn't think it was a super rough ride. I'm sure it had that strong rattle to it. I just thought it was kind of uncomfortable and not the best layout. Like it was kind of a boring layout. It was uncomfortable. The dispatches were atrociously slow. Terrible dispatch times. Um, and yeah, it's just not an amazing coaster. But I don't think it's as bad as some enthusiasts make it out to be. Um, like it again, I didn't find it to be like super rough. It just wasn't super comfortable. It was just kind of mid and didn't do a whole lot for me. So, yeah. Legoland trip soon. I'd be down to go to Legoland with you, Adiana. We should totally do a Legoland date sometime. I'd be totally willing to go with you. I feel like it'd be kind of nostalgic too, from remind me of my trip when I was little. So, yeah. I would low-key be down, not gonna lie. I actually do like the atmosphere of like the Legoland parks, like from what I remember, the Florida one as well as my experience at the California park a few years ago. So, but we'd probably be going to the Florida park if we ever did so. Anyway, 168 is Firebird at Six Flags America. Um, I don't know why I ranked this higher. I think because it had the sit-down trains, which I guess on one hand that was more comfortable. I think maybe the layout was slightly better. However, it was a slightly rougher ride experience. Like this, the one B&M I've ridden where it did have headbanging, and it wasn't a smooth ride, in my opinion. But I think this was the first B&M technically. It opened as a stand-up as Iron Wolf, I think. In let me check. Yeah, opened initially as Iron Wolf at Six Flags Great America. First B&M coaster from 1990 to 2011. Relocated to Six Flags America in 2012 as a stand-up coaster. Then it was rethemed. Then they changed it for floorless trains in 2019, renamed it Firebird. And now this is not operating because the park's no longer operating. So at least it's the best B&M in Maryland, but now there's no B&M in Maryland, so that's kind of unfortunate. But yeah, definitely not the best B&M coaster. But yeah, just my personal opinion. But I'm sure a lot of enthusiasts would agree with that sentiment. Not gonna lie. 167th spot is Fujiyama at Fuji-Q Highland in Japan. This is a Togo Hyper Coaster. This is a very unique coaster. Very unique ride. I kind of wish I could rank it higher. I'm not even gonna lie. I also wish I rode in a better seat, but you can't really choose your row on this coaster. But this opened in 1996, and it has a very long layout. It's very tall, very fast. It goes, has a, has a height of 259.2 feet, speed of 80.8 miles per hour, and it has over 6,700 feet of track. So it's a very cool ride, very picturesque in the park, just very unique. My only problems with it were I feel like the first half was kind of boring, in my opinion. Like it was kind of drawn out. The drops weren't super steep. Like the steepest it gets is 65 degrees on the drop, and it might have also just been the seat I was in. But then but it's not super rough in the first half. The second half, it's more thrilling. You've got like a kind of crazy finale, but the problem is it's really jerky and rough. You've got really jerky transmissions. What am I saying? Transitions that take away from the experience, so just wasn't a big fan of that. But I think it's a unique kind of ride in my opinion. I like it's a cool ride. I just can't rank it super high because I just didn't find it to be an amazing one. Um, and then 166. This is probably an interesting pick here, but for this spot, what is up on my Instagram stream? Go check out my live stream on YouTube if you're able to. But anyway, 166 is going to be Twisted Typhoon at Wild Adventures in Valdosta, Georgia. This is a Vekoma SLC, and as you can see, I ranked it a lot higher than Mind Eraser at Six Flags America. And I really enjoyed my first ride on it. I rode it 2 more times, and here's the thing. I wouldn't say it's as rough as I remember Mind Eraser being, but I feel like on my latter 2 rides, it was kind of rough. There is definitely some head banging you've got to prepare for, but I think it's got like a uniquely like intense. It's kind of cool how intense it is, and I feel like it's probably one of the better SLCs. Like it was pretty rough, and there was definitely some headbanging, but it could have been worse, and I still found some enjoyment in the coaster, but it still wasn't my favorite ride by any means. Um, so like this person said, it was fine but not great. Like I think it's kind of fun, but it's not a smooth ride, so that's kind of the issue I have with it. Opened in 1999, and this is kind of the current standout coaster at Wild Adventures. Well, it's kind of this and one other coaster that we'll get to later on. That ranks a bit better. So yeah, let me see if I got any comments. No. Um. Anyway, these couple I'm gonna kind of group, but we've got Goofy Sky School at Disney California Adventure, Anaheim, California. We've got Apple Zapple at King's Dominion, Doswell, Virginia. 2 mock rides. Wild Mouse, although this one's the Goofy Sky School has a bit more of a traditional layout. I think I ranked this higher because it's got like the theming, but it's been ages since I rode this, and uh, love this review. Um, but yeah, just nothing crazy. It's been a long time since I rode this. It's nothing super noteworthy. It's just a Wild Mouse from what I remember. But at least you've got like the cool theming on it. Apple's Apple, I think, was a little more interesting. Like it had a better first drop and stuff. It has that more modern, unique, although it's kind of cloned, Wild Mouse layout. So yeah, I say more modern even though this is almost as old as the previous ride. So yeah. Um, I think I've ridden both sides of this if I remember correctly, but unless one of them closed when I was too young, I don't think that was the case. Yeah, this one closed. This one says it closed in 2020. This one says it closed in 2020. Okay. So I'm actually grouped these 3. 2 of them are technically like the same ride, sort of just mirrored mirrored layouts. We've got the Primeval World coasters that are now defunct as of 2020 at Animal Kingdom in Lake Buena Vista, Florida. And we've got the now defunct Ragin' Cajun, more recently defunct Ragin' Cajun at Six Flags America in Maryland. So these were I find these spinning wild mice to be slightly better. I think the Ragin' Cajun was a good bit better than Primeval Whirl, even if Primeval Whirl had better theming, had that like time traveler feeling. I feel like Ragin' Cajun might have been like a little smoother from what I remember. They were kind of cool because of the spinning aspect of it, but this definitely wasn't one of this is definitely one of my least favorite like Disney coasters, and Raging Cajun wasn't anything like crazy good either. So I think they're probably better than the many of like the Wild Mouse coasters, but because of the spinning aspect of it, but still kind of eh. So yeah, I think I liked them when I was younger, but not as much like these days. Like from my last rides on these kind of coasters. 160. This might be kind of a hot take. Is Minecart Madness at Epic Universe in I don't know why my mic's doing that. Epic Universe in Orlando, Florida. It's actually a very new coaster, opened last year, is a set point. How do you describe this? Set point coaster where it's kind of a concept ride where it's like the train is well above the track, so you've got a fake track, and it looks like you do like jumps on the track and stuff. I think they call it a boom coaster, if I remember correctly. Well, this just says over the top, so yeah. So there's like elements where it looks like it jumps the track and stuff. So I think it's a cool concept. I like the concept. However, the way it was pulled off, I like the theming and I like the concept of it. Unfortunately, it happens to be quite a bit jerkier than a coaster this new should be. So that's very unfortunate. But I think it's a unique concept. Just I don't think they. I feel like if it was smoother, it would have been pulled off a lot better. So, just my opinion. 159 is Smoky Mountain Alpine Coaster in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and this is a vegan alpine coaster. Pretty long layout, and the first of two alpine coaster I've ridden. These are pretty fun, not gonna lie. Very scenic. You ride throughout the mountains. It's pretty cool. Um, there might have been like it might not have been the most comfortable ride experience, but it was still pretty cool. How you're kind of secluded on the ride, and you can kind of control your speed. But obviously, as a coaster enthusiast, I'm just gonna floor it so long as no one's in front of me. So yeah, cool ride in the mountains. Not gonna lie. Um, so what's a goat coaster superior? So if I ever go back to the Smoky Mountains coaster, I might have to ride like the Goats on the Roof coaster. Sub Thrill Fanatic on my Instagram stream. Feel free to check out my YouTube stream. But anyway, got that. Um, just above it is actually a much more niche credit of mine. This is Georgia Mountain Coaster in Helen, Georgia. This in northern Georgia. I believe this has a shorter layout. From what I remember, because yeah, does that mention? Yeah, this has just over 2,000 feet. This has almost 4,000 feet of length. So even though this has a shorter layout, I found it to be slightly more thrilling and slightly. I think the track might have been slightly smoother. There was something that was just slightly more comfortable about this ride. So I actually really like this niche credit of mine, but I actually rode this on the way back home from my Smoky Mountains trip back in 2020, and that was kind of the same trip I rode Smoky Mountain Alpine Coaster on. So even though it's kind of short, like I really like this Alpine coaster, and I like the area it's in. Helen, Georgia is kind of like a German town. Like it's got like that like traditional like German architecture, which I think is cool. So anyway, 157, we've got Journey to Atlantis at SeaWorld Orlando in Florida. So Mock Rides water coaster. So yeah, this is technically a roller coaster right here. And it's fun, but you're gonna get really wet on it, and it's not even the big drops that'll get you. I actually rode this pretty recently. It's that little dip right before the second lift hill there that gets you soaked. Like it's ridiculous. I don't know why it gets you so soaked. The theming's cool, but in terms of a coaster, could be better. But at least the drops are pretty thrilling. But you're gonna get really wet on this coaster because that's kind of more the purpose of this ride. So there's that, and then 156, you've got Technic Coaster. Actually, I'm gonna group these together. Technic Coaster at Legoland, California, and Great Lego Race at Legoland, Florida. These are Wild Mouse coasters, but I feel like these stand out more in their respective parks. And they're pretty enjoyable Wild Mouse coasters, in my opinion. So I just personally really liked it. I kind of like some of the theming, um, the way they kind of theme the coasters. So just think those are pretty cool. 154, you've got Journey to Atlantis at the San Diego Park in California. Another Mock Rides water coaster, except this focuses a little more on like the coaster aspect of the ride. Like you can see it has a bit more of a coaster layout before you get like wet on the drop. So I just found that really cool in my opinion. So I just found that something that I really appreciated about this ride. that it was a little more thrilling as like a roller coaster while still being like quite a bit of a water ride as well. So, I'm gonna kind of group these next two. 153 and 152 are Woodstock Express at Carowinds and at Kings Island. These are pretty old school clones. This one at Carowinds opened in 1975. Kings Island one opened in 1972. And I'm trying to remember. I feel like the Kings Island one was just like maybe slightly smoother, but they were both very similar rides, just like different color schemes kind of. They weren't like really rough, but the trains were kind of small, I think. So they're small seats. They're much smaller than like the regular BTC trains. So that's just kind of just because they're definitely more like family-oriented rides. They're more kind of kiddie coasters, sort of. But they're pretty cool, like family wooden coasters. So there's those. 151 spot is Roar at Six Flags America. This is a GCI wooden coaster, and unfortunately, in my opinion, it was probably the worst one that I had ridden. This is the worst one that I've ridden, but it's no longer operating. One of the older ones operated from 1998 to 2025. There was a clone of this at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, but it's been RMC'd. This one never got the RMC treatment, and very unfortunate that it never did, because this one was kind of a rough GCI coaster, and it didn't have that great of pacing. Like if it didn't have the pacing issues, like I feel like it would have had potential. I think the other thing was the trains were just they stuck with PTC trains. They never gave it Millennium Flyers. So I feel like you know I feel like it would have been a more enjoyable ride experience than like if they had like at least like replaced the trains and maybe did some better track work on it. How long have I been streaming for? Over an hour, just about an hour and a half. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, and we're not even halfway through the list. This really long list here. So anyway, yeah, just kind of not the best, like kind of a slow pacing on the GCI layout, rough, and I don't care for PTC trains as much as like GCI Millennium Flyers, so I wish they could have like at the very least replaced those. Like that would have been nice. This person even says like some point GCI figured out how to design like a good worded coaster layout, and that was after they built Roar, and that is pretty true. So you've got that 150, pretty niche credit because this is over in Ireland. One of my only European credits. This is Flight School at Emerald Park. It says Zero Kiddie Coaster, Zero Force Coaster, opened in 2019. Kind of surprising how new this ride is, but because it's like a zero, like I think there was some slight jank to it. But what was really cool about this ride is there's a really tight turn. It might have been this one. It might have been like it was this one, but you can't. That's not the best angle of it. Let me. Yeah, here it is. So I rode this back in 2024. Still not the best photo, but yeah, it was like this turn. It was like we're like low-key mad intense, which I thought was pretty cool about this ride. But yeah, other than that, just a little like family coaster. I thought the theming was pretty cool. It was themed kind of like an airport. So just thought that was pretty cool. Themed to flying in like an airport. And pretty good, like kind of niche credit of mine. So 149 at the same park is Dino Dash. This is actually a Vekoma kiddie coaster, much newer or kind of newer. This is open in 2022. So yeah, it did open in 2022. It was a pretty. This has a slightly smoother layout, and it's got that smooth like Vekoma layout now. Obviously not crazy with like stats or anything, but I thought it was like pretty fun. Theming was pretty cool too. You got like some dino themings. So yeah. Almost looks like with the track and the theming, it almost looks like a mini Velocicoaster, but obviously it's nothing like Velocicoaster, not even the same manufacturer. But thought it was interesting, not gonna lie. Interesting modern Vekoma, like junior coaster, if you will. 148. This is an interesting niche credit. This is Panic Coaster Back Dawn at Tokyo Dome City in Tokyo, Japan. It's a Gerstlauer family coaster. This park, if you will, kind of right in the city of Tokyo, also has Thunder Dolphin, a big hypercoaster. I didn't get to ride that. I think it was under refurbishment when I went, and I didn't really have any warning about that. But I was able to get this like mini credit, and on paper, with the stats, um, yeah, I guess it's SBNO. Don't know why that is the case. Is the park SBNO? I guess the park is SBNO. That's kind of unfortunate. Um, on paper, these look like weak stats, but they managed to really like the layout feels fun, kind of in the dark, and during the second half of the ride, they kind of light things up in the dark, and there's like a cool soundtrack. It's a cool ride experience because it goes like forwards and backwards, and it's kind of in the dark. It's actually my first coaster in Japan, technically, and even though it's a very little coaster, I still thought it was a fun little ride. I'm not gonna lie. 147 spot, Expedition Everest at Animal Kingdom in Lake Buena Vista, Florida. And this is an iconic coaster, opened in 2006. It's a family coaster, but obviously a pretty thrilling one because you've got in the dark backward sections. You've got this big drop. It goes up to 50 miles per hour. You've got some strong like positives on some of the helixes like later on in the ride. Some spooky theming going up on an expedition and like with the Yeti and everything. So very cool ride. I've found it to be a little like rattly, but they might have refurbished it at some point, so I don't know if it's still the case. But this is actually one of the first like big coasters I rode. I'm not even gonna lie. One of the first like really big coasters that I rode. So pretty thrilling for a Disney coaster. And pretty iconic as well. 146, we've got Venture Express at Kings Island. This is an Aero mine train, and this is probably one of the best Aero mine trains I've ridden. Maybe the best, if I remember correctly. There's some slightly janky transitions, but I feel like it had a more thrilling layout and some cool theming with it as well. My only major complaint with this ride was the underwhelming ending because it kind of just goes up a lift hill with this kind of cool like finale, um, like this indoor lift hill with some suspenseful music, sort of, and suspenseful theming. And then you just take a turn into the station, like into the brake run into the station. So, pretty underwhelming in my opinion. But it is what it is. I guess I didn't group this together. 145th spot, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad at Magic Kingdom. Actually, recently re-rode this since they retracked it and did a little bit of theming work to it. I don't know why they say rough ride transitions. I don't think it was that rough before. I feel like it was maybe kind of rattly and just jarring at some parts. Now it's smoother, so it's much smoother and it's more comfortable. Um, but it's some of the lack of those jarring elements can take away some of the thrill factor, but you still get those like good like lateral moments. This was probably my first coaster that I've ridden, if not my first, then one of my first. I rode this when I was really little for the first time. So been operating since 1980, but like I said, very recently got a retrack. So yeah, very iconic. You've got 3 lift hills. You've got pretty long ride duration. So yeah, it is we wave. Okay. It's yeah, quite the ride experience. Quite the iconic Disney attraction there. At the 144th spot, we've got Seven Dwarfs Mine Train in the same park. This is a fun coaster. It's smooth. I remember when it first opened. But I think it gets a slightly longer wait than it needs to. It's kind of an underwhelming, like it's not a crazy ride. It has a little bit of swinging in the carts, in like the mine carts, but it's got a cool drop here, like a drop into that turn. I like the theming of it, but I feel like it usually gets a longer wait than it needs. And like it's fun. It's a fun coaster. but still very much just a little like family coaster, so none too crazy. Excessive wait times is definitely a complaint there. So, yeah. 143 is Kraken at SeaWorld Orlando, the sub E&M floorless. I just find that this ride's kind of rough these days. Yeah, it is a bit of it is very rattly ride, but I like the intensity of the ride. I like the first drop. Um, and the inversions can be fun, but it is kind of running rough. I rode this pretty recently, and like normally I would just call this rattly, but like I feel like it's borderline rough now. But yeah, again, it's not the worst coaster. Like it's still a fun ride. And not a bad floorless coaster. I just wish it was a bit smoother, in my opinion. I wish it was a smoother ride, in my opinion. So 142, we've got a bit of an iconic classic coaster here. This is Giant Dipper at Belmont Park in San Diego. Um, this is kind of on a boardwalk park. This has been operating for 100 years. Um, I rode this back in 2023, but this has been operating since 1925. So I think that makes this my second oldest coaster that I've ridden, um, or at least second like longest operating coaster that I've ridden. Only thing is, this has a really rough layout. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm not. I'm just be fully honest. It's very rough, with its transitions, but it's a classic ride, and I found it to be a pretty thrilling ride. So yeah, it can be painful. It can be very jerky and almost painful. But you've also got to understand it's a piece of history. You've got it's cool that you got like the ocean view, and it's pretty thrilling in some aspects. So yeah, that's kind of my opinion of that. Now this one is my oldest coaster. This is unfortunately now defunct now, unless they relocate it somehow. This is Wild One at Six Flags America. This ride's got some interesting history because even though it operated at Six Flags from 1986 to 2025, it previously operated in Massachusetts all the way back from 1917 to 1985. I guess we got some pretty old photos of the older attraction as well. This is actually a solid photo for 1983, I'm not even gonna lie. This is some really solid photo right there. And right here, yeah, these are actually some really good photos. But anyway, Subcoaster United, feel free to join my YouTube stream. Um, but anyway, it was a pretty rough coaster when I rode it. I don't know if it was as bad as Giant Dipper though. It was a fun ride, but pretty rough. But I think it's cool that it's my oldest coaster um, that I've ridden. Um, yeah. Anyway, let me exit my Instagram stream. I gotta respond to a couple texts I just got from someone who might be viewing the stream. Uh, where is yeah. Look, you probably need to hop off the Instagram stream soon, or I need to like charge my phone. My phone's gonna die. But anyway, I got any more? Okay. So I kind of gave my opinion on Wild One. 140 full throttle. I forget why I ranked it this low. It's just kind of a short ride with a like finale that's kind of cut short. Like that drop's kind of disappointing. But the rest of the ride's fun. You've got that massive vertical loop. You've got like the little forward and backwards section. It's just kind of a short ride, in my opinion, but still a fun one. It's just not crazy besides that launch and that loop, in my opinion. So, yeah. But the launch is pretty punchy, which I appreciate. Next, we got Reptilian at King's Dominion. This is a bobsled coaster. This is a very thrilling. What the hell is this review? But anyway, not the most comfortable ride, but it's very thrilling. Like it's I like kind of the way they rethemed it, and it's cool how it kind of swings along like the steel bobsled track. So I think it's a cool ride. Opened in 1988 mock rides bobsled coaster. So yeah, that's just really cool. 138, we've got the Quest at Emerald Park in Ireland. New for 2024 coaster. So Vekoma Family Boomerang Coaster, and I think these are pretty thrilling rides. I'm not gonna lie. And you've got that like almost vertical spike there. You kind of go backwards. Very smooth coaster. Very fun ride. None too crazy, but it's a smooth and fun coaster that I appreciate. 137, you got Freedom Flyer at Fun Spot America in Orlando. This is the Orlando park, not the Kissimmee park. Those are two different parks. And I don't think it was a rough ride or it was definitely a smooth ride when I rode it. I rode this back in 2018. I like how it's got comfortable restraints and stuff. I like the view over the park. I also rode it with like the VR mode. This is the only coaster I rode with like a VR. I don't know if they still do that, but I remember that was kind of a gimmick back in the day. But it was a fun ride. It's just nothing crazy, not a crazy layout, but it offers cool views of the parks. And modern Vekoma, you've got that modern Vekoma smoothness, which is nice. So there's that. And then 136, we've got Penguin Trek at SeaWorld in SeaWorld Orlando. I actually first rode this right before it opened, and this is actually where I met ConqueringCoasterz, who I was talking to a bit in my chat earlier. I don't know if he's still here or not, but actually met ConqueringCoasterz when I first rode this ride right before it opened. I got a pass holder preview on it. Open 2024. I'm glad that B&M's making family coasters now. This is a nice themed family coaster. I think it's very fitting for the park. It's a nice in-between coaster, kind of in between, the Zero Kitty Coaster, the Sesame Street Coaster, and Icebreaker, I guess would be the next step up after this. Problem is, from not even day one, because I rode this, you could say, before it officially opened, from not even day one, this ride had a rattle. And this is a problem with modern B&M coasters, is their new coasters are rattly. Like, there's no denying it. And this is, like, very strong rattle. It's a very strong rattle on this ride. And I think this applies to some other modern B&M coasters too, so I think B&M really needs to do something about that if they haven't already done so. At least for their bigger coasters, they definitely need to do that, because I don't want to see modern B&M coasters having like potholes. Like that would be a big problem, because even their kiddie coasters are having strong rattles, so that's kind of unfortunate. Cordy Coaster's still here. Let's go. That's valid. Bro is committed to watching this live stream of me listing off every single coaster, but I really appreciate it. Next up, we've got... Again, sorry, I'm like sniffling a bit. I just got over being sick. But anyway, next up is Arctic Rescue at SeaWorld San Diego. This one I found to be better. First off, from what I remember, it's a smoother ride. Intamin seems to be doing a better job with their smoothness than B&M currently, from what I've gathered. This one opened 2023. I rode it in 2023, so it was a new coaster when I rode it. Was it really that new, though? Dang, I rode it when it was really new. Okay, that's cool. That was cool when I rode it. So, it's a fun ride. Doesn't do a whole lot, but it's kind of a cool experience. Like, you've got, like, kind of that, like, motorbike like feeling. The theming on it's cool. This is kind of what I wish Arctic Rescue was. Like, I think Arctic Rescue has a more like, I don't know. Like, I feel like Arctic Rescue might have a slightly more thrilling layout in itself, but this has like the better smoothness and the better like riding position, if that makes some sense. So, just my opinion there. 134 West Coaster at Pacific Park in Santa Monica, California. Opened in 1996. Very iconic coaster. Um, I think a lot of people would probably recognize this from like GTA or something. Um, but yeah, this is a small scale Morgan. Morgan was known for their like hyper coasters back in the day. But this was actually a boardwalk, like small scale family coaster. I enjoyed it. Very scenic along the like Pacific Ocean, and pretty smooth ride. Like I know this doesn't look smooth, but it was pretty. It was a pretty smooth ride when I rode it. So there's that. Got the iconic location. So I thought it was pretty fun. It's one of only two Morgans I've ridden, so we'll get to the other one a lot later. 133 is the other Mountain Railroad, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad in the States. This one's at the California park. I know this one's slower, but for some reason I found it to be more, like, slightly more fun. And at the time I rode it, it was smoother than the Florida one, so that gave me some bias above the Florida one. So, I guess they're probably a little closer now, though. But, yeah, I really enjoyed this. I enjoy this iteration of the ride, even if it's not quite as fast. And it actually opened first, so I think that's pretty cool. I also think it's unique how it like starts off outdoor, like with the outdoor station with the indoors rather than the indoor station. Um, but you still got this part covered, so I just think that's interesting, like an interesting like difference of the two rides. And looks like Ariana's still here. Both y'all are committed to the stream, which I appreciate. Um, Very much appreciate it. 132, I'm gonna group these ones. 132, 131, you've got Backlot Stunt Coaster and you've got Queen City Stunt Coaster at King's Dominion, Kings Island. I think I remember this might have not had the fire effect and this one did, and that's why I ranked this one a spot above. But otherwise, they're basically the same ride. They've got an intense like helix at the start. Some pretty cool family coaster layouts, and it is like pretty thrilling in my opinion. So I really enjoy like this kind of ride. And there's a few of them at the Legacy Cedar Fair parks. Open around like 2006, like around the mid 2000s ish. I did not find it to be a rough or janky ride at all. I found it to be like kind of smooth, but but it was also very forceful, which I appreciate. And like same thing applies for this basically. Not gonna lie. And then 130, 129. I don't know if I've ridden both of these or not, but I'm gonna say that I have, like both sides of this. Is the um oh wait, I just remembered this is the Florida one, so I think I have. I think I've ridden both sides of this one. This is the Space Mountain in Magic Kingdom in Florida. This is the original Space Mountain, opened in 1975. As you can see, you got Alpha and Omega sides, and I think it's a cool ride. I used to really enjoy this, and I think it's a very thrilling ride. It's a very thrilling ride in the park, because of how indoor it is, the tight turns and everything. Um, but it's a little janky, and I especially noticed that during my last ride. It doesn't have very smooth doesn't have very smooth transitions. Kind of a rough ride. It's fun. It's iconic, but especially from my last ride, like it's definitely not the smoothest iteration of this ride. So, but it's also a classic coaster. Um, Probably the oldest coaster in Florida currently. So, yeah, it's kind of the case. And it was the first Disney World coaster. So, or at least in Florida. So that's cool. 128, you've got in Vertigo at Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. This was the first coaster with a boomerang layout, like Vekoma boomerang layout that I've ridden, opened in 1999. But this one's not a traditional one. This actually suspended. I guess it's called the Vekoma in Vertigo. It's a suspended boomerang coaster. Let me see like how many of these were made, low key. Fortunately, SBNO, I guess. Kind of unfortunate. But I guess 4 of these were made. Only 2 of them remain. This one and one in France, I guess. And it's fun. There's some slight headbanging. But I think it's cool. I think it's cool how they make like you've got seats facing each other, which I think is kind of wild. I feel like at one point there was like one of these called Face Off, um, or Two Face, I guess was called when it was at Six Flags America, and this was relocated to another park. And then yeah, it's just got a standard boomerang layout, but you're like suspended below the track, which I think is actually really cool. I'm not gonna lie, kind of underrated, even if there's like not, even if it's not entirely the smoothest. 127th spot, we've got the Raven at Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. Um, this ride's fun. It's got a fun layout. I'm not gonna lie. You've got some good laterals, some good airtime moments. Um, it's not that the ride is bad, but there was just a really the roughness was kind of bad on this coaster, and there was an especially bad jackhammering part in somewhere in the middle of the ride. It like it's a cool ride, it's a cool setting and everything. I like how it's kind of based off like an Edgar Allan Poe novel, but like it's got a good layout, but it's a little rougher than I can probably tolerate for more than one or two rides, especially with the bad jackhammering moment I mentioned. So this, in my opinion, is the roughest of the three wooden coasters at Holiday World, unfortunately. Again, still a fun ride, but you've really got to brace for the roughness because it's a little rougher than I expected it to be. 126th spot is the Beast at Kings Island. I rode this in 2021. I rode during the day. I never got a night ride on this, unfortunately. Um, Unfortunately, it's a pretty rough ride, but it's also a ride from 1979. I also rode this before the Gravity Group retrack, so that's probably a lot smoother now. But this ride's a lot of fun because of how deep it goes in the forest, how kind of the roughness I feel like kind of adds to the ride a little bit. Um, so I like how far it goes out. I like how much of an experience it is, and I think some parts are just kind of funny, like how after the second lift hill, you have this long, slowly banking drop, and then you just slam into the turn, which is a rough moment, but it's kind of funny how intense that is, in my opinion. So, and I'd imagine riding this at night would probably be a legendary experience, as this suggests. And I like how it's a really long. This is the longest wind coaster in the world. It's got a track length um, of 73, like over 7,300 feet. So, you know, pretty iconic wooden coaster right here. There's nothing quite like the Beast. Now, 125, we got Anaconda at King's Dominion. So this isn't as bad as a lot of enthusiasts made it out to be. I don't think it's operating anymore. It closed in 2024. It was definitely out of place for the park, especially looking at it next to like Intimidator, which is now Pantherian. But like I didn't think it was terrible. I rode in the back row. It was just the pacing. I think the pacing was just bad. The pacing was just mad slow on certain elements, including like those corkscrews. But I didn't think it was like terribly rough. Like I think I found a little bit of enjoyment in it, even if it was kind of pointless in certain ways. So it wasn't terrible, but it could have been much worse. So just in my opinion. 124th spot, we've got Woodland Run, formerly Thunder Run, at Kentucky Kingdom in Louisville. This is a Dinwiddie. Um, this is what Hurler should be, in my opinion. This is Hurler if it was pretty good. I think there was some slightly rough moments on this ride, and it's not an amazing wooden coaster, but it was more fun. You got better like elements on this ride, better airtime moments and stuff. So yeah, I had some enjoyment for this coaster. It's a pretty iconic coaster. It's the oldest continuously operating coaster in Kentucky Kingdom, opened in 1990. So yeah, I think it's that final turn. It's that final turn that I found to be kind of jarring. I think it mentions that it's kind of surprisingly rough toward like in that turn and a little bit in that like second half. But yeah, it's got some intensity. It's not very rough in the first half, so like it's got those forces that Hurler lacks, basically. If Hurler was Woodland Run, it would be a genuinely good wooden coaster. And this one genuinely is a good wooden coaster. Next spot, sorry about my mic, but next one, 123 spot, is Mystery Mine at Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. This opened in 2007, Gerstlauer Eurofighter, and a very unusual one. This is a very strange coaster, especially in the park. I think the theming's really cool. Um, I'm not crazy about the Gerstlauer restraints, but I think some of the layout's kind of funny. I like the theming, like especially on like the final like vertical lift. You've got that like hold before the drop, and then you've got that like those final inversions. I think are cool. Um, it's not the smoothest ride. I think the over-the-shoulder restraints made some of the transitions a little uh, like caused some slight headbanging. But otherwise, it's an interesting ride, and I don't think it's terrible. I think it's still pretty fun. In the same park, we've got Fire Chaser Express just above it. This ride makes a lot more sense. It's a much smoother ride. It's a Gerstlauer launched family coaster. It actually goes forwards and backwards. It actually goes pretty high up and like really kind of takes advantage of its terrain quite a bit. I like the theming, kind of the fire chasing like theming. I like how it has like both the like the tower propelled launch and you've got like the lift hill. So yeah, this is a cool coaster. I think this family coaster makes sense. I haven't been to Dollywood to experience its newer family coaster. Um, my last visit to this park was in 2020, but I want to go back at some point because I love this park. This is an amazing park with some great coasters, and we'll get to some more of those later on. 121st spot, Space Mountain in California in Disneyland. And this says 2005 because it had a major overhaul in 2005, but I guess the original version of it opened in 1977. But I think where it was like an arrow before and the one in Magic Kingdom still is an arrow, this one's a dynamic attractions, like I think dynamic attractions like retract it and everything. And this one's way better than Space Mountain in Florida because even though you've got some of the more jarring thrills in the Florida one, this one is so much smoother. Like it's got a really smooth layout and it's still thrilling. I think it's faster actually. This one actually goes faster than the Florida one. And you've got a soundtrack on top of that. So the theming's better too. Like you've got all of these things that are better with this coaster. So this is the superior Space Mountain, in my opinion. I'm gonna try to like charge my phone with my laptop, so just it's probably gonna open up the been streaming for so long. Or not gonna edit or so. So let's see. I'm plugging my phone in my laptop so I can charge it a bit. I'm not doing that right now. I'm not doing that right now. I'm trying to like keep live streaming to kind of like promote the stream a bit. And this is kind of acting up. It's kind of acting a little whack. I don't know where to put my phone, unfortunately. Maybe here is better. Okay, that actually might work. Maybe if my phone doesn't fall over. Okay. No, we're not doing this right now. But anyway, enough of that. 120 Revenge of the Mummy at Universal Studios Florida. Cool indoor coaster. Cool launches. Very cool theming. I've ridden this coaster a lot of times. Um, yeah, I enjoy this ride. Um, I think I like it a lot just for like the theming aspects of it. I don't know if like the rest of the ride does like a crazy amount for me, but it's got some good launches, some good like some good indoor sections. Like it's a fun coaster, fun like family indoor multi-launch coaster with some really cool theming. and it goes both forwards and has a small backwards part, but only for like a little dip. So, but I'm kind of going to talk more about backward sections on a future coaster on this list. But for now, 119, we've got Banshee. I probably need to rewrite this, but I just found this to be overrated. Um, like, it's an intense invert. I can see why many enthusiasts consider it the best invert. But, oh, I just remembered they got stats here. It is all in kind of metrics. And as an American enthusiast, I use kind of more of like I guess it might be imperial system that many Americans are used to. So apologies to any European enthusiasts. But anyway, like it's a newer, like it opened 2014, but like it's got a good layout, good intense layout. I think I didn't like the vest restraints. The vest restraints are just kind of tight. It has a pretty strong rattle, but it's got the intensity. I just wasn't as big of a fan of this as many enthusiasts are. So, just my personal opinion. Yeah, my complaints are kind of the same complaints here too. So anyway, 118 Joker's Jinx. I know I kind of trashed on Flight of Fear at Kings Island, but this I found to be a lot better. This is no longer operating though, because it was at Six Flags America. This premier rides like Spaghetti Bowl, LIM launch coaster. This kind of similar layout to Flight of Fear, I think. Might even be the same layout, but outdoors. But this was just a lot smoother. Still had some of the pacing issues, I think. But towards the end of the ride, it really picks up. It really picks up the pacing. So, and it's pretty intense. It's pretty intense layout. It's just really fun. Like those later inversions, like the corkscrew at the end, for instance. Yeah, it's pretty whippy. So I enjoy that about that ride. And 117 is the other Flight of Fear I've ridden at King's Dominion. This is way better than the Kings Island one. I was worried about this one. This has the same great theming. I do not find it to be a rough ride. The Kings Island one I found to be a rough ride. This I found to be so much smoother. And this actually acknowledges that. Yeah, this is so much smoother than the Kings Island version. And that's why I appreciate this way more than the Kings Island version. So, Premier Rides cooked with the Kings Dominion ride. I don't know why. They opened the same year, too. So, I don't know why they kind of fumbled the bag with the Kings Island version. But it is what it is, I suppose. Yeah. But anyway, 116, you've got the Bat at Kings Island. No, this is not the original Bat that opened in the 80s. This opened in the 90s, but it's the Bat at Kings Island. This is the other aero suspended coaster that I've ridden, and it's so much better than Iron Dragon at Cedar Point because it's got so much more of a thrilling layout, and I think it was maybe a little smoother too. Um, got a better first drop. You've got better pacing, better sense of speed, better with like those turns, and you've got a little more of like the swinging element, I guess, even though the turns are banked, like the cars are actually like swinging throughout the layout, which I really appreciate it. So it's a fun, smooth, and fast-paced ride that I really appreciate. Previously, it was Top Gun and Flight Deck because it used to be Paramount IPs at this park. Then it became a Cedar Fair park. Then I guess they renamed it the Bat. I think during the 2010s to honor to pay homage or homage, however you pronounce it, to the original Bat that opened only for a little bit back in the 80s. I guess that was the original Aero suspended coaster. So now at the 115 spot, we've got Dominator at King's Dominion. So this I found to be a bit smoother than Kraken. Like I said, Kraken's kind of running like a little very rattly and borderline rough these days. This ride I found to be a good bit smoother, and I feel like, which is I don't know why these are listed because, like I said, I don't find these to be the case. I think I preferred both have good drops, but I kind of liked the steeper like curved drop on this one, or at least it felt steeper. I don't know if it actually is, but I like the inversions more on this. It had forceful inversions. I think a more whippy layout. It had a more whippy layout. So even though this is only one of two like non-dive floorless coasters that I've ridden. I find this to be the superior one to Kraken in my opinion. I was initially told it wouldn't be that good, and then I rode and I was like, this is way better than Kraken. So yeah, that, that's what I have to say about that one. 114 is the now defunct Nighthawk at Carowinds. It's operated from 2004 to 2024. I think it operated for a few years before that at a different park as well. It was technically a relocation. Um, it was a it was definitely a very rattly ride, kind of rough, low key, but I thought it was a fun ride. It I liked the location. I liked how it flew around the park. I liked its intensity. It had a really fun and kind of crazy layout in my opinion. I think one of the more crazy elements was that loop, which you kind of take like the bottom portion of that, like lying on your stomach, kind of. So I think it's cool the way Vekoma implemented their Flying Dutchman models, because you kind of go back and forth, like you kind of start on your like stomach and then go flying, and even kind of switch up a little bit. But fortunately, this ride model is no more. I think this is one of the better of the like old school Vekoma models, though. So definitely will be missed. But yeah, no more Nighthawk. But there's another Dutchman I've ridden. It ranks higher on this list, but we'll get to that. 113. Matter of fact, I'm gonna kind of group these next three together, sort of. 113, you've got Flying Cobras at Carowinds. You've got Boomerang at Wild Adventures. So I guess this will be my favorite, maybe at least one of my favorite coasters. This might be the best coaster at Wild Adventures, unless I have something higher, but I don't think I do. And then Jolly Rancher Remix at Hershey Park. So, so Flying Cobras, what I liked about this is my first traditional boomerang, but it has the vest restraints. So I liked how it had that. It was a very shaky ride, though, from what I remember. And it's kind of just plain, like, forgot the snake theming, but that's about it. Like, no real, like, crazy theming. I thought it was a fun ride. These boomerangs can be pretty intense, and I think they're kind of overhated. But it was very shaky still, and I think I think there's a kind of a reason. I kind of have my reasons for ranking the other two slightly above. So this one, for instance, even though this has the traditional over-the-shoulder restraint for the Wild Adventures one, I didn't find it to be an issue. It was still shaky, but I think I like kind of its position in the park better here, and I think the intensity was very like noticeable on this. Like I think it was a slightly better experience. Like maybe it was still very shaky, but I think maybe a little less shaky than the one at Carowinds. Then Jolly Rancher Remix, I think what really made this ride. This had the vest restraints like the Carowinds model. What I liked about this one is how they try to kind of like overhaul this a little bit. Like I feel like it had I'm trying to remember. I feel like it had a tunnel. I don't know if they removed the tunnel or something. But but like they rethemed it, made it candy theming, added the soundtrack. So I guess they have the tunnel there um for this ride, which I think that's cool. So I like how they like kind of took care of this ride. They kind of overhauled it and made it a little cooler. So just my personal opinion there. 110, this is the other Vekoma Flying Dutchman I've ridden. This is Batwing at Six Flags America. Unfortunately, this is now defunct too. I think this one was slightly smoother than the Carowinds counterpart, which made it a bit of a better ride. But otherwise, I have very similar things to say with like the intense layout and everything. Still not the smoothest, but I found it to be a bit smoother than the Carowinds one, and it's an intense ride. So unfortunately, it was a pretty unreliable ride. Like I think it closed before the park closed technically. Um, yeah, its listed closing date was actually July 8th. So, and the park didn't close till November. But yeah, kind of unfortunate there. 109th, Wild Eagle at Dollywood. This is a fun, intense wing coaster. Not my favorite in the park. Plus the vest restraints are kind of unfortunate. But it's a very scenic, like picturesque ride. It kind of goes higher up than the ride is kind of like in height, sort of, if you will. Like, I don't know. Like, it kind of towers over the park, even though the kind of elevation change throughout, like, most of its layout isn't actually that much. I think that's just because it takes advantage of its terrain. So, yeah, fun ride, fun, intense coaster, but the restraints are pretty tight and not my favorite in the park. Not even my favorite looper in the park, low key. So, yeah. I think the lift hill is actually pretty tall, but the rest of the ride isn't because of the terrain. But yeah. Anyway, 108, we've got Gemini as Cedar Point. Um, this is a pretty cool, none crazy. I didn't find it to be that rough. Maybe like at the very end it was. But this is a cool dueling layout. Nothing crazy. But I found it to be pretty fun. There was some thrill factor to it. There's some solid airtime. It's been a while since I've ridden this, but I remember it being pretty fun, and I just like the interaction with the other ride. It's also a pretty classic ride. Opened in 1978. It's an aero coaster. Technically, you could say it's a mine train coaster, but I feel like the layout is a lot different. The layout is kind of that of like a classic wooden coaster, and it's even technically a hybrid coaster with its wooden supports, but obviously runs smoother with its steel track. Other than some slight jankiness at the end, I think. So yeah, and it is overall smooth for its age though, and yeah, it's a fun ride. 107th spot, we've got Cobra's Curse at Busch Gardens Tampa. Um, it's a fun ride, and I like the spinning aspects of it. It's pretty thrilling throughout the ride. Not the most intense ride ever, but like I said, like the kind of latter portion of the ride where it starts to spin is really fun. And I think it's a cool family coaster at Busch Gardens Tampa. I really enjoy this ride, and I like the theming of it too. 106, Dragonflyer at Dollywood. This is one of the modern Vekoma family suspended coasters. Opened 2019, but these are really smooth, and they're thrilling. They're actually thrilling. You've even got an overbank turn thrown in there, which is kind of wild. Um, and you've got some fun. Um, you got some like fun, even kind of like whippy, like smooth, like turns and those kind of elements. So I actually think it's a really enjoyable coaster, and I like how it's kind of in that newer family-oriented section of the park. I just wish it had better capacity, like it didn't run one train only, but that's just kind of how it is. And their restraints are comfortable too. This is what Vekoma should have done way sooner, with their like hanging bangs, because their hanging bangs suck. But this is peak, in my opinion. Well, I say peak, but it's not even top 100, but we're almost there. I'm gonna kind of group these next two together. This is niche considering my age. I'm 20 years old, so this is niche considering that because these closed permanently in 2017. So my last rides on these, I was only 11 years old. But these are the Dragon Challenge roller coasters at Islands of Adventure in Orlando, Florida. I actually got multiple rides on these between when I was like 9 till I was like 11 years old and it closed down. These were fun inverts, I'm not gonna lie. I do kind of miss these inverts even, but in my opinion, their replacement is a bit better. But there's no denying these were fun, intense inverts. I think it's generally agreed upon that the Chinese Fireball side, the red side, was is an overall more fun experience. They're both intense coasters, and they would have some great interactions to ride. The Hungarian Horntails, the blue side as well. Um, so yeah, they were both really fun. I miss these rides, but the only problem was like, um, at some point, like I think what kind of cooked this ride's popularity, maybe or whatever, is the lack of a dueling element kind of made it like a little out of place. It was kind of just a pair of B&M inverts, and in a way, I wish these could have just been relocated because they're even on each one's own, they're great inverted coasters, even without like the even without the dueling aspect. But obviously, Universal wanted to make something more up to date with their amusement park, and with the replacement, they absolutely did so. So, that's the case, but I do still miss these rides um, because now we don't have those great pairs of dueling inverts, and I think those are probably some of the best B&M coasters to go defunct. But yeah, very very unfortunate coaster loss there. I'm grouping these next two together, and you'll see why pretty quick. 103 is Acrobat at Nagashima Spa Land. 102 is Manta at SeaWorld Orlando. These have the exact same layout. Manta's obviously much more well known, being here in the States and at SeaWorld. More iconic layout. I've ridden this one obviously a lot more, and this used to be one of my favorite coasters, but I don't know, I find it to be kind of overrated these days. Like, it's got that intense pretzel loop, but I feel like that can almost be a little too much. And I know that sounds weak saying that as a coaster enthusiast, but just my personal opinion. But I've ridden this coaster a lot. I've ridden it many times. Like, I liked it more when I was little, but nowadays I think I prefer airtime and I think quick positive G moments with like turns and stuff. Like, there's certain aspects of intensity I prefer to this like crushing intensity, if that makes sense. Acrobat's got the same layout, but Manta's got the slight edge because the Japanese counterpart, even though it's a little newer, this opened 2015, Manta opened in 2009. Even though this has the same like water effects and stuff, I feel like SeaWorld went a little more all out with the theming, um, and I kind of like the environment of it more. So yeah, I just slight slight edge for the Manta one, or slight edge for Manta as opposed to its counterpart Acrobat. But they're both basically the same ride experience and everything. 101 spot is Super Duper Looper at Hershey Park in um, Hershey, Pennsylvania. It's a Schwarzkopf looper. This is, I think, the first coaster on the East Coast, maybe with a vertical loop, if I'm not mistaken, which is cool. So in 1977, so pretty unk attraction, but it aged really well. These are actually, the track itself is butter smooth. There's some the transitions can be slightly janky on these older Schwarzkopfs, but this ride, like the track, I don't know how. It is just butter smooth. It's ridiculous how smooth it is, and that loop is forceful. This is a fun ride, and I rode at night, which was even more fun. So, like, it's kind of a slept-on classic coaster here. My opinion, Schwarzkopf is kind of a slept-on manufacturer. I wish they lasted longer, because in my opinion, a lot of their coasters have aged better than a lot of classic Aero coasters. Obviously, Aero had the bigger impact overall, but Schwarzkopf, I feel like, has just, again, their rides have just aged better for them being like a manufacturer. So, in my opinion, I really like this coaster, Super Duper Looper. Same sentiment kind of applies to the next coaster, um, which will kick off the top 100. Um, just got a text, so I'm going to pause for a moment. Yeah. Okay, back on the live here, even though no one's probably going to join it. So, kicking off the top 100 is Great American Revolution at Six Flags Magic Mountain. And this opened in 1976. This was the first coaster, as far as I'm aware, this is the first coaster with the vertical loop. I don't think it was the first coaster with an inversion. That I think that might have opened 1975, maybe, as like an Aero corkscrew. But it's the first one with a vertical loop. Um, so, acknowledging. So, Yeah. Um, Pretty similar sentiment. Super Duper Looper might have been like slightly smoother, but I feel like this had like slightly. This was also smooth, but it also had like this might have had like more intensity with some like the turns and elements. It's got that same intense vertical loop. I think I kind of just ranked this above because it's a bit more of an iconic ride. Like this is a bit more well known of a ride, and kind of had a bigger impact being like the first ever one of its kind. But also this is some cap right here. It is smooth for its age. It's a very historically significant ride. So yeah, iconic coaster right here. It's had a lot of names though, I'm not gonna lie. Number 99, we've got Loch Ness Monster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This is an old school era looper, and this is not a rough coaster. Maybe some slight jink in like the second half, like in the tunnel maybe. But besides that, this is a cool coaster because you got the interlocking loops, and it's just kind of an iconic ride in the park. So yeah, this is solid, like classic, like era looper right here. I really enjoy this ride, and this is one of the better, like classic era loopers right here. Um, so yeah, just really enjoy this, in my opinion. And number 98 and 97, I'm gonna group together. You've got Toonbilly at King's Dominion, Doswell, Virginia. And you've got Arashi at Nagashima Spa Land, Japan. These are both SNS 40 Freak Spin coasters. Toonbilly was the first one I rode back in 2022. Then I rode Arashi much more recently. And I think coaster enthusiasts hate on these coasters too much. These are fun, and they're kind of wild too, because you've got that free flipping. Like, I understand where it can be too much, or maybe the flipping's not enough, but I think it's just really thrilling. I just personally think it's really thrilling, and it kind of tosses you around like a rag doll. Like it's a. I think those are just really thrilling rides right there. Um, you're very sweet. You're very sweet. You know who you are. You're very sweet. I keep having to text, but it's fine. Uh, yeah, I'm glad that that is the case. Oh. But yeah. Hopefully I'm like getting my new messages. Hopefully I'm like just checking that like my chat's still working. But yeah, I really enjoy these coasters. They're overhated. They're fun. They're very thrilling. 96, we've got Blue Streak at Cedar Point. My first round this, I found this to be really fun. This has a really fun layout. It's a very classic, iconic PTC Woody, opened in 1964. This ride's over 60 years old. I rode in 2021. I thought it was a really fun and pretty smooth wooden coaster. Second time I rode it, it was a little more rough, and I might have ridden on like a wheel seat or something. What's funny is I rode by myself the first time. Then I asked my parents. I was like, "Hey, y'all should ride this. This is actually a pretty smooth wooden coaster." We rode it and it was a little rougher, so kind of looked like I tricked them for a moment there, but not. I genuinely had a smooth first ride on it. So I think it was just a matter of where we sat. But it actually had a fun, thrilling wait time. Or not wait time. Had a fun, thrilling ride experience. You've got classic Woody, you've got those strong airtime moments. Like it can be rough and rattly, but that's only if you sit in the wrong seats, from what I remember. I think it's because we might have sat like further in the back. That might have been part of the issue. So number 5, we've got Comet. Hershey Park is a PTC wooden coaster. Um, it was a bit like more rattly maybe, but it wasn't a terribly rough wooden coaster. This is another iconic wooden coaster with some good like airtime moments and stuff. And this is a really old coaster, one of my older coaster credits, opened in 1946. So this ride is, I guess this year it's 80 years old. So that's pretty wild. That's longer. That might be longer than the park has been, like Hershey Park. So yeah, and it's pretty smooth for its age. It's well maintained. It's actually it's even a pretty family friendly like wooden coaster. So this is a very It's a very nice historic wooden coaster with some solid airtime moments. It's got a pretty long ride duration from what I remember. So, fun little wooden coaster. Number 94 spot, we've got White Lightning at Fun Spot Orlando. And it's a fun ride. It's a smaller scale GCI layout. Runs a little rough. It runs a little rougher for a GCI, but that's kind of how it has been with Florida wooden coasters historically. That's why there's not a whole lot of them in the state currently. But it was a fun Woody. I only rode it once, so I rode in 2018, so I'd have to ride it again. Plus, I know it got a little section of Titan track, so I want to come back and re-ride this park, but because Fun Spot's got their chaperone policy, it's gonna be just a little bit before I can go back. So, that's unfortunately the case. Like, I feel like kind of a mini rant here. Like, I think it's very unfortunate for a park to have to raise their chaperone policy to apply to guests under 21. Like, I feel like it should be under 18 because like I've been driving for years by myself. I've been going to parks by myself for a few years now. But I can't even visit Fun Spot, so yeah. I think it's because there were probably some incidents, and I think they just wanted to play extra safe with their like precautions, sort of, and keeping people safe. Sorry, there was like a fly in my room, but yeah, just kind of unfortunate. And this applies to all the Fun Spot parks, both Florida parks and the Atlanta park. So pretty unfortunate. But anyway, number 93 is Apocalypse Ride, another at Six Flags Magic Mountain, another GCI Woody. I found this to be a little rougher than I expected. Like, yeah, this mentions excessive roughness. Yeah, it's a little rougher than you expect, but it's got a good layout. It's got good pacing, good lats, some good airtime moments. It's a fun ride, but like for the kind of ride it is, and for it, considering the fact that it's not even older than I am, it's just I don't like, but all things considered, I feel like this should be a smoother ride than it is, so that's really unfortunate. But yeah, there's that. Number 92, we've got Kentucky Flyer at Kentucky Kingdom. This is a family gravity group Woody. Not a crazy ride. It's a little rough. I feel like I want to like gravity group more than I do. I like GCI a lot, but I'm a little biased. Like, I feel like I feel like I'm slightly biased against Gravity Group just because their rides tend to run a bit rougher than GCI coasters, but like they still make fun layout. Like they know how to make fun layouts. It's just I wish some of their coasters were a little smoother, but they can make pretty smooth wooden coasters. Like I'm not going to deny that. I just feel like GCI does it a little better. But this is a fun little family coaster still. None crazy. I don't think it was as rough as Apocalypse, but like it's still but it's a smaller scale Woody, and still there's probably some slightly smoother wooden coasters. 91 is Invader at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, and it's slightly rougher than it maybe should be, and it's definitely smaller scale, but I still enjoyed this wooden coaster. It's got some solid pacing, solid airtime moments. Some kind of cool like queue theming, and I like kind of that tunneled like first drop. It's got some exciting elements, so I do enjoy this like wooden family coaster here. Could be a little better, but still enjoy this GCI Woody here. Number 90 is Mind Blower. I feel like this could drop in my ratings if I rewrote it though. This let me make this very clear. This has a really fun layout. This is at the Kissimmee location, by the way. This Fun Spot Kissimmee. I rode this in 2021. It's a Gravity Group Woody. The only one I've ridden with an inversion, because Gravity Group has been daring enough to put 0G rolls on wooden coasters. And it's a fun ride experience. I even rode it multiple times. It's a fun ride layout. But it is ridiculously rough. Like it's a very rough coaster, kind of all throughout the ride. I hear RMC did a retrack, but it was still pretty rough. So Like it's got pretty extreme track roughness, so that's very unfortunate. Like, but still got good airtime moments. It's got a fun inversion, a fun first drop, but it really suffers from its fullest potential from its roughness. Part of that could be the Florida climate. Part of that could be just the track design just not being that good. So, I don't know. It's just way rougher than it should be, in my opinion. This could rank so much higher. This could be one of the best wooden coasters out there if it wasn't so rough. I'm sorry. Matter of fact, what beats this out is actually the Racer at Kings Island. And I have both sides listed here, but they're basically the same. Right side might have been slightly better, though. This is a classic PTC Woody, opened with the park in 1972. So, really old wooden coaster. And they say there's some roughness. There may be some slight rough patches, but it's a smooth ride and it's got some good airtime moments. Great airtime moments on that. And I think it's even had some track work done to make it even smoother. Which I don't. They might have retracted it when I wrote it, but it might have also been after I wrote it. But either way, I found it to be like not a very. I found it to be not a very rough wooden coaster, so I really appreciated that. Um, and it's really fun with like the racing aspect of it as well. So I really enjoy this classic Woody. Rode in 2021. It's a fun experience. So 87 is The Legend at Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. So this is another CCI. This is the other CCI Woody at Holiday World, and this one is much better in my opinion. Even though it's not a very smooth ride, it's kind of rough. Um, it's it doesn't have like that bad jackhammer moment that I meant. It doesn't have that really bad pothole that I mentioned about the Raven, and it's also got some really good lateral. And it's got some really good laterals, which I really appreciated. Some crazy laterals too. It's got a really drawn out turn at one point that just keeps you pushed to the side. And what's crazy about some of these like older like CCI wooden coasters from like this one's from the year 2000, um, is they'll have crazy lateral moments but not a lot of banking. And that's especially the case on this ride. I also love this iconic like picturesque like drop here. Like I really think that's cool. But it's just out and back, intense laterals, intense twister layout, and yeah, I think this is a really cool. This is probably my favorite of the few traditional non like how do I say this like non completely retract as far as I'm aware like CCI Woodies. So there's another CCI coaster on this list, but there's a reason I kind of make that distinction there, and you'll see why. Um, so there's that one. 86 is Cullen at Emerald Park in Ireland. This is a Gravity Group wooden coaster, or Gravity Craft, I guess. Opened in 2015, and this is one of the only large-scale European coasters I've ridden. And this I find to be a smoother Gravity Group coaster, so this is one of my favorite ones from them. It's got a solid layout, some good pacing, some good airtime moments I really appreciate. So I think this is a really fun wooden coaster. I really enjoyed it, and it's one of the best coasters in the park, or it definitely would have been the best coaster in the park if not for one other coaster, which we'll get to later on. So it says it's rough and vibrating. I didn't find that to be the case. Um, there is a little bit of momentum loss, but it's still overall the pacing's pretty good, especially in the first half of the ride. And it's still got some great airtime moments. It's also got a really cool overbank turn um, during the ride, like as it passes by the station. So it's got a great first drop. I love that like first drop because it's just a straight drop, and it's really fun, in my opinion. So yeah, 85 is Laugh Track. I feel like I've like passed some rides, have I? I feel like I've like missed something. I did not mean to do that. Okay, sorry if I spoiled some later picks, but 85 is Laugh Track at Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania. This is an indoor Maurer spinning coaster. I thought it was really smooth. I like how it's like kind of indoors in the dark and you don't really know where you're going. Very smooth. I just thought it was really thrilling. Like I really enjoy it, probably more than most people would. I think this is a really enjoyable spinning coaster. It's very smooth. The spinning is like perfect. You can't see where you're going. It's just really fun and kind of exhilarating, like in the dark while you're spinning. So just really enjoy that one. 84 is the now defunct Wicked Twister at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. I rode this in 2021, pretty shortly before, just months before it closed for good that same year, but operated from 2002 to 2021, and had these two twisted vertical spikes. And I thought that was really fun. I thought it was especially thrilling when you were facing towards the ground on like that backward spike. So I thought that was just a really thrilling ride. It might have been a little rattly, but it wasn't like a rough ride. And I also liked its placement in the park, like by the beach side. Um, and yeah, those are just some intense like twisted spikes, and the kind of view of the ground on the backward spike is just pretty wild in my opinion, so I enjoy that coaster a lot. 83, 82, 81. I'm grouping these together because they're the same ride. We've got Tempesto at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. We've got Tigress at Busch Gardens Tampa. We've got Electric Eel at SeaWorld San Diego. Just checking my chat real quick. So I've heard a certain coaster enthusiast who was in my chat earlier. I don't know if he's still here. He was earlier. But a certain coaster enthusiast, YouTuber, and content creator has had some opinions about Tempesto, and I'm gonna say those are some pretty valid opinions. I'm not gonna lie. Like, just because, and I know I have these ranked high, so it probably sounds crazy that I'm saying that. But I enjoy these layouts. I enjoy these layouts a lot. The only thing I don't enjoy are these premier trains, especially how these have the comfort collars. I don't know if they got rid of them on these ones, but last I rode them, they had the comfort collars, and they were not great. Tigress and Tempesto, I feel like basically had the same experience, like for me, the exact same experience. Tempesto was just a little bit older though. Um, but I really like how they have that intensity with like the launches and um, kind of that non-inverting loop element. I like how it's got that hang time with the slow like barrel roll at the top. So I think that's really cool. But the trains could definitely be better. They're tight. The rows are tight. You've got the comfort collars that are unnecessary, and you've got those lap bars that I don't care for with the shin guards. Electric Eel, I ranked slightly higher than these two for kind of one reason, and it was because you get a much better view from this ride. You're a lot closer to downtown San Diego, so you get a better view of the city skyline, and you're close to the California coast, which I think is really cool. And you can kind of, I don't know if that's the clouds or if that's like the sea in the distance, but like from the top of this ride, you get a much better view. It's probably more of the city skyline low key, but still I preferred the view on this ride. Number 80 spot, we've got Shuttle Loop at Nagashima Spaland. This is the only one of these Schwarzkopf shuttle loops that I've ridden. I think there's only so many of them. I think these are kind of becoming a rare model from Schwarzkopf. Would have ridden Montezuma's Revenge, but they're still revamping it. It's been SBNO for a while. So this is the only one I've ridden, and it's fun. It's fun. It's got the old school launch. Opened back in 1980. You've got an intense loop, which you do forwards and backwards. So that's really cool. In so yeah, it's got a punchy old school launch, which I think is very effective. 79 spot, We've got Scorpion at Busch Gardens, Tampa. This is now defunct. Opened in 1980, closed in 2024. I rode this multiple times. It was slightly janky, sure, but it's very intense. This is a very intense coaster, and I didn't mind the jankiness. I think it like kind of weirdly added to the coaster, and it wasn't that rough. I think the intensity was really cool on this ride. I really enjoyed the intensity. I think this is probably the most underrated coaster in the park when it was open. This was also my dad's first coaster with an inversion, so I also kind of admire that aspect of it. This was kind of a significant coaster for my dad, and this would have been the same for me, but I ended up. This could have been the same for me realistically, but I didn't get to this park till well after I'd ridden my. I didn't first visit this park till well after I ridden my first coaster with inversion, so yeah. But I think it would be a great first coaster with an inversion to ride, despite some of the jankiness. But fortunately, they closed this classic roller coaster. I can see where it was kind of out of place in the park, but I really enjoyed this iconic Schwarzkopf looper. Thankfully, there's another one that still exists. Unfortunately, it's in a country that I don't live in, but I've gotten the chance to at least experience it once. It is a looping star, which I guess this is kind of what this coaster model is, right? Yeah, this a doesn't say what kind of is, but I think it pretty much is. It is the looping star at Nagashima Spa Land. It's opened in 1982. And it's very similar. There's some slight differences with the layout. Like I think it goes kind of more back and forth with its turns. Um, Whereas I think Scorpion kind of just does like a helix moment, then a intense helix moment in the brake run. But this has kind of quite a few like turns here before the brake run. Um, and even though the banking on these turns is weird, I find this coaster to be pretty smooth considering how old it is. Um, which I don't know if everyone who was in my party who I rode with this agreed with this, but I just have a fascination for this kind of roller coaster, and I thought it ran pretty well, had a lot of intensity, and I thought it was pretty smooth going about its layout. So just really enjoyed that about these classic like Schwarzkopf loopers. So number 77, we've got the Manta at SeaWorld San Diego. Yes, I think this is better than the Orlando one. I am aware that this is a bit more tame. It is a Mach Rides multi-launch family coaster, but it's got some good airtime moments and pacing. It's smooth. Um, the intensity doesn't crush me too bad, and I feel like the theming's a bit better because you've got like kind of that theming with the launch. I like how it kind of like I like how it has sort of that like layout that just kind of goes out and like is kind of like that twister layout. I just think it's really cool in the setting of where it is. So yeah, smooth ride with good theming, good solid airtime moments. So I enjoyed that. 76 is Incredicoaster, Disney California Adventure. This, believe it or not, this was actually my first coaster with an inversion. I rode this first back in 2014 when it was California Screamin'. So I was still a little kid at the time, so this was kind of a big deal for me because I'd never ridden a coaster with an inversion and I was scared to do so. The inversion's not the scary part, by the way. It's really those launches, but fun ride. It was a great first inversion coaster for me. This is the coaster I give credit to for kind of making me a coaster enthusiast. Eventually, I rewrote it 2023, 2025, well after the retheme, which was probably around 2018-ish, when they rethemed it to the Incredibles. And I enjoy both themes, both the California Scream and the Incredicoaster theme. I think the latter makes a little more sense now that they've kind of made it into more like a Pixar theme. They've made it like a Disney IP. So I appreciate both versions of the ride. Obviously, California Scream is going to be a little more nostalgic to me, because when I first rode that ride, that's what it was. Um, but but Incredicoaster does make a little more sense, and I think it's a good ride. It's a bit rattly, I'm not gonna lie, it especially on that loop. But I think it's a fun ride. It's got a long layout, the theming's good, and it's got those punchy launches, and It's pretty immersive with like the soundtrack. I like how it has the soundtrack, and the rest of the ride is pretty smooth. So I appreciate that. 75 is Zokon. I feel bad because I was kind of mispronouncing this during my trip, but Zokon at Fuji-Q Highland. This is an Intamin family like motorbike launch coaster, open 2023. I rode in 2025. I really like this. I like rides that have like the motorbike seating because those feel more exhilarating and you're kind of zipping through the layout. It's got some good launches. It's got some solid like theming elements, and it's got a really cool soundtrack. I really like the soundtrack of this for it feels like a dance party. I'm not even gonna lie. It feels like you're riding on a dance party roller coaster, which I just love that about this ride. It's got a fun layout as well. 74, dang, we got this much later, is the other Revenge of the Mummy. This one's at Universal Studios Hollywood in California. I like this a bit more because it's got the longer backwards section. I feel like it's a little more thrilling in a way. Like it's a bit more of a thrilling ride. Eh. Um, and it does more in the backwards section. So I think that like adds to the thrilling nature of that. So I feel like for those aspects, I give it a pretty big leg up over the Florida counterpart. 73. 73 right here is the original Wildcat at Hershey Park. This is now defunct. It has been RMC'd. I want to ride the RMC someday. I'm sure that will rank well above this. Um, this was the first GCI Woody ever made, opened in 1996, closed in 2022. I rode it just weeks before it closed, like same month and everything. People complained that it was a very rough ride. It was a very rough, uncomfortable ride. I thought it was rough. It was a bit rough, but I thought it was a fun ride. It has a really good twister layout. I like how they used. I like how they eventually like replaced the PTC trains with the Millennium Flyer trains because I think those make the ride much more comfortable. I love Millennium Flyer trains. I think those are some of the best coaster trains that I've ridden in. It's got some good airtime moments as well. Like even though it's a rough ride, I think it's an overhated coaster. I think it's a shame it had to go, but I think it's amazing what replaced it, and I want to ride what replaced it eventually. Number 72, I would almost switch these low-key, believe it or not, is Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm. This is really fun because of the launch. This has a really intense launch. Any Intamin hydraulic launch coasters, which these are kind of going out because they're not the most reliable kind of coaster, with that hydraulic launch system, have some really intense launches. Like, that's the scary part of this ride. It has a scary fast launch. And I think this is the first Intamin accelerator with like that hydraulic launch opening in 2002. And it launches to like 80 miles an hour, or maybe like 82, goes at least like 200 feet in the air. So rest of it is a little rattly, I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of short. Like I don't care for the rest of the layout, but that first launch is just really intense. Plus you get a great view, and on that, like that's a really cool like top hat right there. But it's almost like you almost don't like take it in because of how crazy that launch is beforehand. I'm not gonna lie, you almost don't take in that top hat, in my opinion. 71 is for Bolton at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. I really enjoy this coaster. I really enjoy the theming. I think it's a really fun ride. Open 2012. My only complaints are it is a bit janky, being a zero coaster, and like in the indoor section. I remember the indoor section is pretty janky with like the transitions and stuff, but it's really thrilling. It's a really thrilling family coaster. I like the theming. I like how you're in the dark and you can't really tell what's going on. I like how it has the drop track. Sorry if that's a spoiler, but this is also a 14-year-old coaster, so probably shouldn't be crazy spoiler if you're a coaster enthusiast. Um, so yeah, I think it's a fun ride, fun theming, and yeah, the indoor section is pretty intense. And the launches are good too. It's got some good launches as well. 70, you've got Phoenix Rising at Busch Gardens Tampa. I really enjoy this coaster. I really enjoy this family B&M inverted coaster, open in 2024. It's got a really fun layout, in my opinion, a layout that compares to the modern like Vekoma family suspended coasters. However, this has the modern B&M rattle problem I discussed with Penguin Trek. It's noticeable on this ride too. Something I think B&M really needs to do something about. It's a fun ride. It's just got quite a bit of a rattle on it. I don't know if it was as bad as Penguin Trek. It might have been about the same. Penguin Trek might have even been a little worse, but still kind of a bone I had to pick with this ride. But it has a really fun uh, ride with some layout with some good pacing, and I like how it kind of has a double drop, which I think almost makes it a little more thrilling as like a family coaster. Number 69 is Batman the Ride at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This is the only one of these clones I've ridden. I'm sure I'll ride more of these clones someday, as there's plenty at Six Flags parks. This one opened in 1994. Very intense layout. Got that kind of like, you've got those multiple inversions, the vertical loops, the corkscrews, the zero G rolls, very whippy, intense inversions. It's a smooth coaster, so I don't know why this says headbanging. I did not find that to be an issue, so definitely a fun ride, and I like the Batman theming with it. I think it's fitting for this kind of ride. Number 60 is Afterburn at Carowinds. I really enjoyed this inverted coaster, and it's an intense ride. It's an intense, fun coaster. Opened in 1999. I think this is on the South Carolina half of the park, and it has a ridiculously whippy. It's not even the Batwing element. There's a corkscrew towards the end that's just absurdly whippy. It's ridiculously quick. Like you don't even see it coming. So really fun B&M invert right here. Number 67 is Kumba. This is one of the few B&M sit down, like this kind of sit down coasters remaining. And this is an older B&M, opened in 1993 at Busch Gardens, Tampa. I don't know if it's. I remember last time I came to the park, it was like still down, maybe for maintenance, but it might have reopened unless it's still listed as SBNO. Still says it's operating. Okay, I guess it was SBNO till September. But anyway, I mean, it's definitely going to be a rattly coaster considering it's an older ride, but it's a fun, intense ride. It's got some good positive G's, a great layout. Barely gets any weights. It's really fun in the back. Got a picturesque interlocking corkscrews or whatever you might call that element. So really fun ride. Slightly taking the edge is the other B&M sit down in Florida. This is Incredible Hulk at Islands of Adventure, opened in 1999. All those retracked and reopened in 2016. This one takes a slight ledge because you've got that launch, you've got the theming. So that really adds more to the attraction. It's a bit rattly even with the retrack, believe it or not. Even with a newer retrack in my opinion, but yeah, this is actually the older version of the ride. I think I even rode it when I was little, like right before the retrack, which was pretty cool. Oh yeah, I guess it's the old queue. That's crazy. That's some, yeah, real real Unkstatus enthusiasts remember this. But yeah, cool ride. It's definitely an iconic Universal Studios attraction. So yeah, very intense and iconic roller coaster right here. 65 is Rock and Roller Coaster at Hollywood Studios in Florida. They recently closed this down for a retheme, so it's going to reopen soon, but right now it is SBNO and being rethemed, so we no longer have the Aerosmith version. We're going to have a Muppets version pretty soon. But this opened in 1999. It's actually a custom Vekoma LSM coaster. I find the launch on this coaster to be surprisingly intense. I don't know what it is about it, because it's literally just a 0 to 57. It only goes 57 miles per hour. Maybe it's the fact that it's indoors. Maybe it's the acceleration. I don't know what it is, but it's got a surprisingly powerful launch. I don't know what it is. I've ridden coasters with faster launches that, like, are probably not even as intense as this launch, so I don't know what it is. So, only thing is, last time I rode it, there was a bit more rattling, so it was running a little rougher, so that might be something to address, besides just the retheming. But otherwise, it's a fun coaster with some intense inversions and elements and intense launch. Some cool theming. Let's see if the new theming will let's see how that will compare though. We'll kind of have to wait to see how that is. I think I kind of ranked this a little high. I probably would drop it a little, but number 64 is the now defunct Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, Universal Studios Florida, operated from 2009 to 2025, and this was a very unusual coaster, but I did enjoy it. It had the unique gimmick of being able to listen to songs on the ride, which I think was cool, but I feel like they could have done more with that. They didn't really keep it up to date enough, and when they finally did update it, they updated the songs, but they only kept like one song in each category, whereas before they were like five. So that was kind of annoying, but yeah, I enjoyed that. It was just a bit rougher than it should have been, and it's just kind of a weird layout with like so many mid courses, like it almost like a wild mouse kind of block zones right here. But it's got a really good first drop though. That it's got a good little airtime moment on that non-inverting loop. Um, so yeah, I think, however, this was actually inspired by like Hollywood Dream the Ride at the Japan park. If Universal had been able to get like a B&M coaster instead, I'm sure this coaster would probably still be running and would have aged much better. But I think it's going to be replaced with a Fast and Furious like launch coaster. So I'm sure that'll be a lot better. 63 is Thunderbird at Holiday World. This is a launched wing coaster, much better than Wild Eagle in my opinion. Very intense ride, very smooth ride too. Got a pretty punchy launch at the beginning there, so really enjoyed this ride. It's first of its kind launched wing coaster. So I really enjoyed it. And this is the major steel coaster that the park absolutely needed because all of its other major coasters are wooden. So you gotta have a major steel coaster, especially like this, like a launched B&M, to like kind of have that to balance out the lineup a little more. And it's got some good near miss elements, so that's really fun. Some good hang time as well. Number 62 is Curse of the Werewolf at Epic Universe in Orlando. This is a fun ride. I think this a little overhated. I do have some slight problems with this. The theming could be a little better, like this mentions, underwhelming theming. Like it is kind of a standard queue. Like you've got those theming elements, like with the werewolf and kind of spooky theming, but the queue otherwise just feels like a standard line queue. There's onboard audio, but there's not a lot of theming even like on the ride either. So in some ways it kind of makes it feel a little out of place, but it's got a fun layout and some really good spinning. It's a very smooth coaster as well. It's got some good launches, good spinning, etc. Even has a back and forth section, so I think that's really cool. I think the other thing is like the queue gets long and the capacity isn't that great either, so that can be kind of an inconvenience. Um, 61 is Hiccup's Wing Gliders at Epic Universe, so also in the park, this one's much more fitting for the park in my opinion. You've got much better theming. I do think the queue could be a little better, but the theming overall is a bit better, like especially like during the ride. And I like how it goes over the water. It's got a pretty exhilarating, like smooth, and I like the pacing of the ride. I like how it like dives under the water as well. It's got some good launches as well. So yeah, a really really cool family coaster in this part of the park. Number 60 is Sierra Sidewinder. This might be a family spinning coaster, but it's actually really intense with the spinning. So I really appreciate that about this ride. It's very fast. Like it's a very intense, tight turns, fast pacing, and the spinning is pretty crazy. So this is a really fun ride. It's a little short. Capacity could be better, but it's a really fun ride in my opinion. It's funny because it's in the kids section of the park, but it's a lot more thrilling than those rides. 59 is Daredevil Dive. This might be a slightly inaccurate rating. I haven't ridden this since I was 8 years old, but I remember it being the best ride I rode. I was a little too short at the time for like the B&Ms in the park, so this was kind of my best option, and it was a good, fun Gerstlauer Eurofighter, some good inversions, that beyond vertical drop. Very smooth and thrilling ride that I really enjoyed, but I would have to re-ride this eventually. 58 is Hang Time at Knott's Berry Farm. This is another Gerstlauer year, or this is actually an Infinity model, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. but it's got a beyond vertical drop. It actually has a holding brake at the top, which I think is really cool. It's got more inversions. It's got airtime. It's got some fun airtime moments, and as mentioned, it's got some good inversions and hang time moments as well. It's got comfortable restraints, so I really enjoy this ride a lot. 57 is Silver Bullet in the same park. I really like this B&M invert. It's not the best because it's got that shallow drop, but it's got that, and it hasn't got like quite the same level of like whip to it. Hasn't It's not quite as whippy of a coaster, but the inversions are good. That final helix is really intense, which I appreciate. It's got an over the water setting, which I really appreciate. It's a smooth ride overall. The pacing's good. So, but only cons are just that shallow drop and could be a little whippier. It would be a lot better of an invert if it was whippier. 56 is Alpengeist at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. This essentially solves some of those issues. It's maybe a little rattly. I didn't think it was as rough as some people say, but very thrilling invert right here. And this is like, I think the largest one out there. So yeah, just overall really fun layout, really whippy, fast-paced inversion. It's almost a hyper coaster. That's how tall it is. Like this is genuinely a really big coaster. Um, yeah, yeah, literally 195 feet, just 5 feet taller. Would be a hyper, would be a hyper invert. Like they easily could have done that. Um, but I actually prefer Montu, believe it or not. I think it's a little more intense. This is at the Tampa Park. Strong positive G's. You've got that back wink element. You've got that those very intense whippy elements. I think this one's probably a little smoother as well, even if it's a year older. It's opened in 1996. Thankfully, Florida hasn't gotten rid of all of its inverts. We still got this one, or all of its large-scale inverts. This has a rough ride feel, but like I said, I'd say it's probably a bit smoother than Alpengeist, and it's a generally pretty smooth coaster. It's got some whippy elements, especially like the corkscrew at the very end is really good. And the Batwing element that goes in like the trench, and as well as the other like that's really intense. I like how it goes through like the trenches a little bit as well. 54 is Emperor at SeaWorld San Diego. Probably a hot take putting this over at B&M inverts, but I'm a big fan of dive coasters because that drop's always going to be intimidating, and this is the smallest scale one I've ridden, but it's still a really fun ride. I remember this being a smooth coaster, even if it's a newer B&M, opened in 2022. Um, but yeah, it was really fun. Very picturesque coaster, good views. So yeah, I really enjoyed Emperor. Only complaints are I feel like they put very little into like the station. Like the station's literally outdoors, like almost completely outdoors. No like indoor and no shading for like the queue or station. So I feel like they could have put a little more effort into that, but that's fine. 53 is Griffin at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. It's opened in 2007. I was expecting this to be my favorite dive coaster, but there's a couple that rank above this. The reason for that is because I feel like there's kind of weird element towards the end that made this ride rank kind of weird for me. It was kind of a jarring element. Um, but I really enjoyed this ride because it's got like both of those inversions. Like it's got the Immelman and whatever try to remember the second inversion. I guess another Immelman. Yeah. So it's a good dive coaster, really intimidating drop of over 200 feet. Um, so really fun ride. But there's a couple that I prefer to this one just because I find them to be slightly like smoother because they don't got that like jarring element. Also, what's up, Henry, on my Insta? So, and it's these two. Okay, I'll go over Valraven first. Y'all are probably surprised about Valraven. Valraven I just found to be smoother overall. You had the vest restraints, which did restrict the airtime, but I think you had some better elements. You've got a bigger drop. You've got a bigger drop. I think you've got some slightly more like elements on this coaster, um, from what I've gathered. Like, yeah, you've got an Immelman dive loop and zero G roll, and I think there was like an airtime element towards the end as well. So it's just got a better and longer overall layout in my opinion. So I preferred that layout. I think it's the best layout, but the vest restraints kind of hold it back a little. Sheikra, I think is kind of the best of both worlds. So this is Sheikra at Busch Gardens Tampa. It's got similarly big drop to Griffin, just barely smaller. It's got that Immelman. It doesn't have the second inversion, but it also, I feel like the element towards the end isn't as jarring, so I prefer that. And you've got the traditional like over-the-shoulder restraint, so you get all that airtime on the drop. So because of that, hot take, Sheikra is the best dive coaster I've ridden. Although I do wonder how the one opening at Six Flags Over Texas, I want to ride this like as soon as it opens. Tormenta Rampaging Run. Like, what do you mean we've got a Giga Dive coaster now? They could have made the drop bigger, but still, we've got a Giga Dive now. Like that's actually going to be insane. As long as this doesn't have like any roughness, because of that modern B&M rattle issue. But anyway, got that. Number 50 is West Coast Racers. This just has a fun layout, fun dueling layout. Plus, it's technically the same credit. It's the same coaster, so you experience both sides of it in the same ride. So I think that's cool, even if it can't boost your coaster count by more than one. Still fun ride. Pretty smooth coaster. Had some fun inversions and some good pacing. Yeah, just overall enjoy it. Only thing is the restraints are not that great because they're premier restraints, but you know, that's just kind of how it is with premier rides. They make good coasters. I just don't care for their trains and restraints. So I guess that cracks the top 50. So 49 is Tennessee Tornado at Dollywood. Yes, I think this is better than Wild Eagle, and this is my favorite Aero Looper. This is aged as well as a B&M, probably better than some B&Ms. Like it's actually a really smooth ride, believe it or not. It's got some intense drawn out inversions. It could be a longer ride duration, but it's got those are really cool. Henry joined on his other account, so what's up? And it's got like a good tunnel drop, which I appreciate. So just a really cool Aero Looper right here. Just a very unique ride. If Aero had like locked in with these kind of rides sooner, I think they would have lasted a lot longer than they did. So, because this is towards the end of their life. This is one of their last coasters. So, number 48, we've got Takabisha at Fuji Q Highland in Japan. I think this is now the second steepest coaster. The steepest one's in like New Jersey, but has like almost the exact same layout. It's got fun launch, fun intense inversions, crazy beyond vertical drop. Like you've got to experience that drop to know how crazy that is. The restraints aren't the most comfortable, can be slightly rough because of that. But it's got a fun layout that I think absolutely makes up for it, especially with that beyond vertical drop. Plus you get an amazing view of Mount Fuji from the top. Like it's actually incredible. Although it can be a little cloudy, it can be a little harder to see it, but you still get a great view of the mountain. It's the whole park is just very picturesque. 47 is the Raptor at Cedar Point. This is actually an older invert, opened in 94, but this is actually one of my favorites. Like it's got good pacing, some strong intensity, especially like the final helix is really intense. If I had any complaint, it's like the transition in the brake run is really jarring and almost kind of jerky. Like it even mentions this headbanging on brake run. Like that's kind of what happens. But the rest of the ride is smooth. The rest of the ride's very smooth. I think the rest of the layout more than makes up for it. Some great inversions, some great pacing that I just really enjoyed on this ride. Number 46 is Tatsu at Six Flags Magic Mountain. I prefer this to Manta because even though this also has probably even more overwhelming pretzel loop, I feel like it provides just some amazing views because of the terrain of the park. With that smooth, like graceful, like flying layout, and some better elements overall. but you still gotta brace yourself from the for the pretzel loop, because this pretzel loop's even bigger. I think it's the biggest one out there. But yeah, this opened in 2006. You fly around the park very high in the air, so I just think that's really cool. 45, you got Pipeline the Surf Coaster. So this is the other stand-up coaster, but it's a modern one. It's a surf coaster technically, but it's really a stand-up coaster. Only difference is the seats don't lock into place, so it moves up and down with the layout. So you get actual standing airtime where your whole body is off the ground while you're in a standing position. And I think this was a great way to bring back the stand-up coaster because I feel like this actually does it right. Yes, it's not going to be the most comfortable still. Like you've still like and you've got a little bit of that like modern B&M rattle on this ride. You've got a good bit of that modern B&M rattle. But it's got a fun layout. You've got that inversion. You've got airtime moments, which is crazy to experience on a coaster of this type. Cool setting by the water as well. It's got a pretty punchy launch at the beginning too, so I really enjoy that. And number 44, I think this is my highest ranked B&M invert. Believe it or not. Probably should have gotten some water earlier. But it's Great Bear at Hershey Park. Very smooth coaster. Opened in 1998, but it's still very smooth. I really like the layout because you've got like a cool like helix right before the drop. You've got a good drop. You got some forceful, intense inversions. You've got some fast pacing throughout this coaster. There's not a lot of inversions, but the ones it does have are good. The speed on this ride is really good. Do wish it could be slightly longer, but I think I don't know, something about this ride, I think with like the pacing especially, just makes it like my favorite of the B&M inverts I've ridden so far for some reason. There's just something about this ride I really appreciate. 43 is the now defunct Ride of Steel at Six Flags America. There's technically a mirrored clone of this at Darien Lake, but this one is no longer in existence. At the very least, it's SBNO, but operated from 2000 to 2025. So I think this is an underrated hypercoaster. I get that there was some. I get that the straight tracks were kind of pointless dead spots, but I found that the had a great first drop. It actually had some good airtime moments towards the end, and there was some good intensity actually on like those helixes. There's some good intense moments. So the intensity and some of those airtime moments I actually really enjoyed, and that drop is actually really fun, like especially in the back. So this ride I'll miss a lot. This is one of the rides I'll miss like the most that has closed. Number 42 is Icebreaker. It's my favorite Premier Rides coaster so far, although if I got to ride Alpenfury, that would probably be my favorite. So I'm in 2022. I'm so glad they got rid of the Vesper trains, but I'm still not a big fan of the Premier Rides trains. Nevertheless, this has my favorite layout. It's got some good airtime moments, and that vertical spike can be pretty thrilling. With that, you get kind of a stomach dropping feeling, and you're looking down on the ground. Like it's like that's a cool element. You've got to admit, it's not the longest ride duration, but it's got some strong airtime moments throughout the ride. And for kind of a family, like thrilling family coaster, this is a really thrilling ride for the park. So, and I dare I say it's one of the best rides in the park. So, following that is Cheetah Hunt at Busch Gardens Tampa. Better trains on this ride. It is slightly tamer, but this goes more like out and back, and I like how it's a smooth ride. I like how it's pretty fast paced. Overall, other than this weird like top hat turnaround element. Fun family coaster. It's got a good inversion on it too with the 0G roll. It's got some great airtime moments as well, especially towards the latter half of the ride. So, plus it's got some like whippy turns and stuff. So I think that's really cool. Number 40 is actually the shirt I'm wearing now. This is Nafiana Force at Emerald Park in Ireland. I don't know what this is on about. Maybe it's certain rows. But this outranks every B&M invert I've ridden. That's how good this new gen Vekoma suspended thrill coaster is. This opened in 2024. Really smooth, some good inversions. It actually has a surprising first drop, especially in the back. It's kind of a whippy first drop. You've got some smooth but also pretty forceful inversions. And you've got some really whippy, like low to the ground turns. And I think it's almost like the perfect layout for this kind of ride. Like it's just a really fun, smooth, whippy, and just thrilling ride. It's a very strong ride. It's even got a little bit of airtime on it, which is pretty wild. Very comfortable restraints too. Very comfortable. It's almost like a lap bar, but like to the side, like on a suspended coaster, which is really cool. 39 is Fahrenheit. This is a Beyond Vertical Drop intimate coaster, a very unusual kind of coaster, but it's got some great intensity, great speed, great inversions. Overall, very intensity. You've got some airtime on it that's really good. So yeah, very unique coaster, and I think it's one of the better ones at Hershey Park. So really enjoyed it. 38 is Apollo's Chariot. I could have gone a better route on this. I rode in like the middle. Um, but even though this is probably one of the weaker of the B&M Hypers, considering it's the first one opening in 1999, I really like it. I like how it's got the pre-drop before like the big drop on it. I think that's a really cool element there. It's got plenty of airtime moments like a B&M Hyper would have. A great setting kind of in the forest. So just a really cool ride experience. But it's not as strong in airtime as it should be. So that's kind of unfortunate. Um, 37 is Tron Light Cycle Run at Magic Kingdom. This is the best ride at Magic Kingdom. One of the best rides in Disney World overall. Opened in 2023. Should have opened a lot sooner though. It was under construction for a while. It's a very immersive ride, very thrilling. Like with a launch, you have that indoor section. It's very exhilarating with that motorbike setting and kind of riding above the pathway there. It is a bit of a short ride, though, I will admit, and I think it would be better if it was slightly longer experience. I think it was slightly less smooth than I expected. It's a smooth ride, but there was some weird, like, I almost want to say, like, not rattling, but like shuffling maybe a little bit. That was weird. But besides that, like, I like this coaster. This is a really good coaster. 36 is Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure at Islands of Adventure. This replaced the Dragon Challenge coasters I've listed earlier. I will say, even though I missed the Dragon Challenge coasters, this is a much better replacement. Even though it's more family oriented, opening in 2019, it's got much better, more immersive theming, which is more fitting for the Harry Potter themed area. You've got a longer ride duration. Um, and you've got some thrilling elements, like you've got the motorbike seating that's exhilarating. You've got some whippy elements, some good pacing on it. You've got that drop track, uh, which is thrilling and kind of surprising. Um, so yeah, and it's got a bunch of launches, it's just really cool, really well themed. Number 35 is Orion at Kings Island. This is a B&M Giga Coaster. The newest one until I guess the Giga Dive opens. And even though this is probably one of the weaker of the Giga coasters out there, it's still a really fun ride. I really enjoy this. It has a great first drop, some great intensity and airtime moments. Like there's even like a gray out moment at the end, basically. Um, there is maybe the slightest rattle on this coaster, but I didn't think it was a really big deal when I rode it. Um, Even though it was pretty new when I rode it. I rode in 2021, opened in 2020. Um, but I really enjoy this coaster. It's a really fun Giga coaster, and one of the best in the park. Number 34 is Thunder Striker, formerly Intimidator at Carowinds. This has some great airtime elements, and it's got like the staggered seating, which adds to that. Only problem is it does go heavy on the trim brakes, which does take away a little bit from the airtime moments. However, I still found it to be a fun, smooth coaster. I really enjoyed that, and there's still some good airtime moments, and that first drop is really good in the back. I think I rode that in the back, and that was a really good drop in the back row. 33 is Diamondback. at Kings Island, this is generally considered a lot better. This is, I can see why this is many consider this the best hypercoaster. I think it's one of them, but it's not the best. I think the rattle takes slightly away from it. And I do have some weird biases. Like I don't know why. Like I think because it isn't the smoothest hypercoaster, it does slightly take away from it, but still a fun ride with some great airtime moments. It's got lots of great airtime moments. It's got a cool splashdown moment at the end. I still think this is one of the best coasters in Kings Island, though. It's a really fun hypercoaster right here. Third two is actually Millennium Force at Cedar Point. This is not only my first Giga coaster, but it was the first ever one. It was one of a few Intamin Giga coasters. Opened the year 2000 as quite the record breaker. Goes like 310 feet in the air, over 90 miles an hour. This ride is really focused on speed. I have a weird appreciation for the drop. The drop I found to be really thrilling because of how drawn out it was, and the fact that you're like over right by like the water too. So it's just a really intimidating drop, just because it feels like it like never ends. Like that's how massive the drop feels. Like it might not get steep very quickly, but because it drags on, it almost feels like scarier. And the rest of the ride's fun. You've got some airtime moments. You've got some intensity. It maintains quite a bit of speed throughout the ride, and it's a overall pretty smooth coaster. So yeah, just very enjoyable ride right here. And iconic one within the park. 31 is Wonder Woman Flight of Courage at Six Flags Magic Mountain. It's the only RMC single rail coaster I've ridden. I can see why this is considered weaker than the other, like the weakest RMC model, but still a fun ride with some really good pacing. I'm sure the prototype ones probably have better pacing than this one, but this still has a very fun, fast-paced layout with some great airtime moments, smooth ride, great first drop. I actually rode this in the front row though, but it's got a great drop, some great ejector airtime moments, so I really enjoy it. But the restraints could be a little better though. Like you kind of see where the restraints are kind of like almost like the comfort collars, made a little better though. Number 30 is Cosmic Rewind at Epcot in Florida. This is the best Disney coaster. This is absolutely the best Disney coaster. When I rode it, first time ever, blew my expectations out of the water. It's a very exhilarating ride indoors. It's got some great theming. I know it's kind of screen dependent, but for the ride it is, I think that's fine. And I love the spinning aspect of it. The spinning aspect, the speed, the incredible smoothness, the soundtrack, all of those combined together, you get, in my opinion, the best Disney coaster ever made, one of the best, at least one of the best Disney attractions, probably the best Disney attraction I've ridden. So it's just an awesome ride. 29 is Copperhead Strike at Carowinds. We'll say the launches could be more intense, but I love this layout otherwise. Got a pretty wild JoJo roll out of the station. You've got some crazy hang time on that pretty circular loop. You've got some great airtime moments all throughout the ride, and even some solid theming like at the start of the ride. So, and there's some other hang time moments as well. There's some other inversions that offer some good hang time. So, yeah, and the pacing's pretty good on this too, like during some like the more like speedy elements. So, yeah, I really like this Mach Launch coaster. Um, 28 is Lightning Racer. I only rode the Lightning side, so it's just going to be that on this list. At Hershey Park, my dad actually rode the other side, I think, so I guess he has the other credit I don't have, technically. 2000, this is slightly better than Wildcat was in terms of roughness, like it wasn't quite as rough. It's a fun ride with some great airtime, great pacing. I like the dueling aspect with the other train. I always think that's really cool in roller coasters. So yeah, just an enjoyable ride. Overall, enjoyable GCI Woody with a great twister layout and even some good, like, some could be better, but still some decent airtime moments. 27 is Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. This is technically a CCI, but it was retracked and reopened in 2016, being retracked by GCI. Originally opened as CCI in 1998. I think from what I've heard, the GCI retrack really helped, and when I rode it, like I can see why this people love this coaster. This is one of the best wind coasters I've ridden. It's got a really fun layout. You've still got those CCI elements with like the laterals, and you've also got good airtime moments. You've got some great pacing throughout the ride, and it just those laterals add so much to the intensity. And it's not a rough coaster. It's a pretty smooth woody because of that GCI retrack, which is awesome. 26 is Thunderhead at Dollywood. This is a GCI woody, opened in 2004. When I first rode this, I thought it was alright. I first rode in 2017. I re-rode in 2020, and this another one of my favorite wooden coasters now because I was low-key sleeping on the Twister layout and some of the like great airtime moments that has. The pacing is really good. The lateral moments are really good. It's just really fun all throughout the ride, and it wasn't as rough as I remembered it being. I don't know how it's running right now, but I just really enjoyed this coaster. It's really fun, really thrilling. Feels like you're just flying through the layout. So this is one of the best coasters in the park, absolutely. One of the best coasters from GCI. The best coaster from GCI is 25. This is Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. This is the best coaster in the park as well. I've been talking for so long, my throat's like starting to take it again. I really should have brought like a water bottle up here. But much newer ride, opened in 2017. I rode in 2021. You've got an out and back layout with this one. Very smooth wooden coaster, very smooth for it being a wooden coaster, and you've got so much good airtime moments. The pacing just does not give up. It does not lose its speed at all. And it's such a thrilling wooden coaster. The shed is slightly underwhelming, but we're focusing on the coaster itself, and the coaster itself is just really good with its pacing and its airtime moments and some of those fast-paced like twister elements. Even if it's more of an out and back layout, whereas the Thunderhead is not really that much of an out and back. Number 24 is The Voyage at Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. This opened in 2006. This is one of the best wooden coasters I've ridden. I can see why this is a lot of people's one of their favorite coasters. I think in that regard it is slightly overrated, but it's a really good coaster. I say slightly overrated because it has a little bit of a bite to it more than like some of the GCIs I just discussed. It has some rough moments on it. It's not terrible, but like during like kind of the back half, or I don't know, like the kind of the tucked away twister portion of it, there's some roughness there. But the second half, especially of this ride, is just relentless. You get such great pacing, such great, amazing airtime moments all throughout the ride, and it's just an awesome ride. The ride would do a little better with either Millennium Flyers or Timberliners rather than PTC trains, but this is at least the best coaster I've ridden with a PTC. I could say at least that. And its height is ridiculous, and I think that's why it's able to maintain such a long duration, is because of how fast it goes and how much it towers above the park. So yeah, it's just an awesome ride. And this was my 200 coaster credit, which I really appreciate. At least I call it that technically, since I've rethought about how I count my coaster credits. It's not really anymore, but I'm gonna call it my 200th coaster credit, because otherwise that would be lame. Number 23 is Candymonium. Yes, I rank this above Diamondback, and that's because this is very similar to another coaster on my list. Yes, I know I know the seating's not as good probably as Diamondback, but this has a smoother layout, and you've still got some great airtime moments. So I just really enjoy this ride. Also great setting at the front in the park, in my opinion. So yeah, just a really fun B&M Hyper right here. Number 22 is the coaster Candymonium reminds me of. It's Mako. I'm very biased towards this coaster. Omen 2016, this was actually my first hyper coaster that I rode. and it's still my favorite B&M hyper. It's really smooth, even just about 10 years later. It's still a really smooth ride. Um, really smooth ride. Great airtime moments. I get that the second half, like after the mid course, isn't that great, but the airtime it has in the first half is ridiculous. You get like floater and ejector airtime. It's really good. And that first drop is something about that first drop is just really thrilling. Like that's actually a really intense first drop, um, in my opinion. And it's a very scenic coaster as well. So this is absolutely the best SeaWorld Orlando coaster. 21 is Storm Runner at Hershey Park. Another hydraulic launch coaster. It's got that powerful hydraulic launch, and on top of that, it's got a more complete ride than like Accelerator, for instance, because it's got those inversions and some very unique inversions too. It's also cool is that with the top hat, it launches you, and it has an even bigger drop than the Ascension, which I think is just I think it's really awesome. It's a smooth ride overall, which is enjoyable. Um, Overall, pretty wild. Um, Pretty wild. Intamin launch coaster. Plus, you got some good airtime on that top hat, which is really cool. Number 20 is Steel Dragon 2000. I rode this last year. This is in Japan, Nagashima Spa Land, and it's got the longest. It's the longest like large scale coaster in the world at over 8,000 feet of track. A lot of people. I feel like a lot of people who ride this say it's a weaker Giga. I disagree. I honestly disagree. This is a really fun Giga. Some people say that some of the more drawn out turns are pointless. I disagree with that because I find them to be pretty intense. I found them to be some pretty intense positive, like have some pretty intense positive and lateral forces in those moments. It's also a pretty smooth ride, like maybe some mild shuffling on transitions, but otherwise I'd say it's a very smooth coaster. And after its mid course, there's like a crazy airtime finale. I feel like this is the finale. I feel like that's the finale Magnum wishes it has, because even though it's not as ridiculous as Magnum's finale, it's a more enjoyable one. I really enjoy the ejector airtime finale on this ride a lot. Um, so yeah, just a really fun coaster with both great positives and both with great intensity and some great airtime. Number 19, much more small scale, is Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. Now, this is the only currently operating, although there's plans for more, currently operating Chance Hyper GTX. It's a very short coaster at only like 100 feet tall, but it's relentless. It's got crazy airtime, it's got crazy pacing. Um, it's just a wild ride. It's just filled to the brim with ejector. It's got a really punchy like first drop, kind of right after that lift hill. And yeah, it's just an awesome coaster. It's small, but this is a small but mighty coaster right here. Like this would go over the radar of a GP if they're just looking for like if you're like a GP, you're probably thinking like, oh, this is Avenue versions and it's a short coaster, so there's probably not going to be anything crazy. Um, but enthusiasts know this is something crazy. This is something not to overlook right here. Number 18 is X2. I count this as my 150th coaster credit. This is the last coaster Arrow made, opened right at the start of 2002. And this is ridiculous. This 40 prototype coaster is ridiculous. That drop is actually insane, and you've got some crazy intensity as the seats are flipping throughout the layout. Um, and this paved the way for like possibly a couple of even better coasters. But um, anyway, just a really ridiculously fun ride. I think I had some complaints about the smoothness, but in a weird way, I feel like that added to the ride. Like this ride is so crazy, and then you've got that slight little bit of roughness that actually does add a little bit to the ride. So I think that's pretty wild. Number 17 is Twisted Colossus. This is a dueling RMC hybrid coaster, although it's actually one credit. You go around kind of both laps. Like you go around like each track, it's all the same track really, just dueling with itself. Um, this is really close to X2 in quality, but this is obviously a much smoother ride, more airtime focused. So I really enjoy this coaster. I think it's the best that I rode at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Got some really cool dueling elements like the Top Gun stall, for instance. Great ejector airtime, some great pacing all throughout the ride. So just a really fun RMC. Number 16 is Fury 325 at Carowinds. I count this as my 100th coaster credit. And my first ride on this was in the front row. In my opinion, that's the best row because you get a ridiculous drop and a ridiculous sense of speed, and you've got some good airtime moments as well. The pacing is great. The pacing is ridiculously good. It's got some great airtime moments. There's even a kind of a head chopper moment with kind of a near miss with one of the support beams on the ride, but it's really good. And it's a smooth coaster too. So Fury 325, this is B&M's greatest work in my opinion. Number 15 is Sky Rush at Hershey Park. This ride I actually rode before they fixed the restraints, but I still really enjoyed it. I rode this in 2022. I rode in the back left wing seat. Shout out to Waldemar Enthusiast, who I haven't interacted with in a while, but uh, shout out to that person for that suggestion during my Hershey Park visit. And it's relentless. It's intense. Got some of the most wicked airtime I've ever experienced. Some of the most whippy transitions and some of the most ridiculous pacing I've ever experienced. And the back left wing seat, like it was weird. It felt like it was trying to. It felt like I was on like a bucking bull, like trying to make me fly off of it. Like that's how crazy it was. It is an intense ride. Just following it. Now it's Pantherian. When I rode it, was Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. I rode this twice, once in like the back car, and that's where it was at. My first time. That's where it was at. This ride is really intense. This is the kind of intensity I like. Got some really fast pacing, some really whippy elements, some really high G forces. That first drop is pretty crazy. Um, Especially after that big cable lift. And this is the other Intamin Giga Coaster. This is what it looks like now that's Pantherian. And you've got some surprising airtime moments as well, which I really appreciate on this ride. So yeah, that thing is just a rush. It feels like you're in like a fighter jet or something. It's ridiculous. Number 13 is Maverick at Cedar Point. This is another small but mighty coaster, but I think this one gets a little more recognition for that. Um, this is like I consider this kind of a predecessor to Velocicoaster since they're both technically Intamin Blitz coasters, but this is more unique because you've technically got like a launch to lift hill, and it's just really whippy. You've got some really fast-paced inversions, some strong airtime moments, even if they're limited by the restraints. Um, so it's just a ridiculously fun ride, and how they pack this into a comp out layout is just ridiculous. It's so snappy on the transitions too. Number 12 is Pantheon at BGW. It's a lot like the follow-up to this coaster on the list, except you've got that swing launch as well. So in 2022, you've got the 0G stall. You've got some great pacing, some good airtime moments, some great inversions on this ride. So it's my favorite at the park, my opinion. 11, it's a very similar ride, but much more widely recognized ride. It is Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure, opened in 2021. And some people say this is the best coaster ever. And even though I don't quite agree with that, I really enjoy this coaster. Its second half is really good. First half, it's got some amazing theming in its first half. You've actually got some good ejector airtime moments, particularly in its first half. In that second half, you've got a really good launch into that top hat. Top hat with some great views of the park and some good ejector in the back, especially in the back when you make that drop. a great zero G stall over the walkway, and the craziest element, in my opinion, is literally just a roll. It's the Mosasaurus roll over the lagoon. So that's just ridiculous. There is some slight vibrations towards the back in certain rows. Like I think I find row 9 to be unusually rattly, but otherwise it's pretty much smooth. I think in most rows. Um, so great elements, great inversions, just an iconic modern Intamin launch coaster, and it deserves the recognition it gets, even if it's not quite the top 10. But now we're gonna get into the top 10, and I'm grouping these together. I actually had these ranked slightly lower before, but a recent ride kind of forced a change of heart for me. It is Stardust Racers. I actually think this is better than Velocicoaster. Some people would agree with me, some people wouldn't. I find it to be a bit of a smoother ride, and it has more airtime, and it's a bit more of a consistent ride as well. And I think on top of that, I really like I think the dueling aspect and there's like that in the one inversion it has where it kind of duels with itself in the inversion. I forget what it's like called. It's the barrel roll down drop and the zero G roll. I think there's a name for the combination of the two though. The visual with those is great, and you've got some great airtime and inversions. Most people say the green side's better, but I weirdly prefer the yellow side, I think just because it has a slightly better visual, in my opinion. But anyway, number 8 is Lightning Rod. I rode this when it was fully wooden back in 2017. I haven't ridden it since, but I remember this being a ridiculously good wooden coaster right here. This is the best wooden coaster I've ridden. If I rewrote it, my rating might change, and obviously it'd be a much different ride experience with no more launch and many parts of the track being steel now. But like the launch was ridiculous, the pacing was ridiculous. That quad down, one of the craziest coaster elements I've ever experienced, and I still remember that even all these years later. So yeah, I'll miss the original version of this ride, but that thing just could not stay open. So I guess they just kind of had to do what they had to do with this ride. Like it's a shame they tried so hard for a while. Like they did the retracts before they switched out that like the launch for the chain lift, but eventually I guess they just had to give in and call it wraps for the launch. So it's kind of unfortunate, but at least they made something work now. Number 7 is Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. It's a small scale RMC, but it's really good. You've got that barrel roll down drop. You've got some ridiculous airtime throughout the ride. Just consistent airtime moment after airtime moment, camelback after camelback. Really smooth coaster. And this replaced what was Hurler at King's Dominion. So, like I've kind of referenced, Carowinds really needs to take some notes. Because look where Hurler was ranked, look where Twisted Timber, look where King's Dominion's Hurler's replacement is ranked. Really take some notes. But hot take, Wind Chaser's better. This Wind Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom in Louisville. I know this is a hot take. Some people say this has pacing issues. I didn't find it to have pacing issues. I think it ran appropriately fast all throughout its layout. Great pacing all throughout the ride. I like how weird some of the elements are, how unique some of the elements are. You've got those great airtime moments, and just some great pacing throughout. Just constant ejector airtime. Some really fun, like fast-paced inversions as well, and you've got that same barrel roll down drop. So I just really enjoy that on this ride. Number 5, Original Top Thrill Dragster. Haven't ridden this at Top Thrill 2. I guess Captain Coaster counts them separately. I don't think RCDB does, unless they do. RCDB counts it as the same credit, actually, which is funny. But I've only ridden this as Top Thrill Dragster just for that launch. This is just a ridiculous experience. You had to be there. It's genuinely you had to be there. Unfortunately, this closed for good months after my visit. Now it's reopened as Top Thrill 2, which I'm sure is really good. Probably close to being as good, but I'm sure it's not the same because that's got an LSM launch. This had the hydraulic launch. Going on a hydraulic launch from 0 to 120th and just going straight up that top hat. One of the most ridiculous coaster experience you could ever experience. It was ridiculous. But so blessed I got to ride this ride in its original form. But I will miss this, and I'll miss King Naka. I never got to ride King Naka, unfortunately. I was hoping someday I would, but at least I got to ride what might have been an even better coaster. Number 4 is Hakuge at Nagashima Spa-Land. This is one of the best RMCs I've ridden. One of the best coasters on my Japan trip. Very smooth ride with some great airtime moments, some great pacing, some great inversions all throughout. It's just a ridiculously good ride. I kind of wish I could have ridden it more as well. Um, so yeah, and this was a conversion from another wooden coaster as well. From what I hear, this is leagues better. So yeah, just an awesome RMC hybrid right here. Number 3 is Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens, Tampa. This replaced the original Gwazi at Busch Gardens, which is the GCI dueling wooden coaster. I never got to ride that, but I'll tell you one thing: this is one of the best coasters. We're in the top 3 now, so this is the big leagues are calling right here. Um, so pacing does not let up. Pacing absolutely does not let up. The airtime is ridiculous. The inversions is ridiculous. The speed is ridiculous. This also feels like you're in a fighter jet. Um, what could I say? And that drop is intimidating. That beyond vertical drop, even if it's just 1 degree, it's just really intimidating. Um, my only complaint is that it's slightly short in duration. I guess also the restraints, but I feel like RMC layouts make up for the restraints slightly better than Premier Rides does. So I love this coaster. There's a coaster that fixes the duration issue, though, in my opinion, and it is Steel. Dang it, I just gave away my top 1, but y'all probably already knew it. But anyway, Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. This is if Iron Gwazi was longer, and obviously this came first. This is the first RMC Hyper Hybrid opening in 2018. The former opened in 2022. There's so much airtime on it, it's ridiculous. And the second half of this just goes ham. And I actually really enjoyed the inversions a lot. There's something about the inversions that like caught me off guard when I rode this. And for years, like all of that, the airtime, the inversions, and that long duration was enough to make this my all-time favorite coaster that I've ever ridden. From 2021 to 2025, just last year, that opinion changed. How'd that change? You'll probably already know if you've seen my videos before. It is this coaster in Japan, Edge Naika at Fuji-Q Highland. Y'all saw X2 earlier. This is X2 on steroids, and X2 is already taking something. X2 is already on some sort of gear. This is full on. This is full blown steroids right here. So I'm in 2006. This is a 40 coaster, but the model was carried on for a couple more coasters by S&S. It was this one, then Dynaconda. I don't know how Dynaconda is, but this is probably the best one. And my opinion, best coaster that I've ridden to date. I don't know what could possibly beat this. It takes the intensity of X2 and puts it on another level. It's even smoother, although there is a little roughness towards the end, but you've also got the craziest element at the end, which is the flip into the... I can't find a good photo of it, but the flip into the station is one of the most, like, outlandishly crazy elements I've ever experienced. Like, it's... Because when you slam into the brake run, it pushes you against a restraint. It's ridiculous. Like, you'd have to experience it, but... Unfortunately, I only ever got to ride this once, but someday, I'll get to ride this ridiculous beast of a coaster again. This is peak right here. This is actually peak coaster right here. So, as of last year, this is my all-time favorite coaster that I've ever ridden. It is truly worth the hype. So, yeah, that's gonna be all for the stream. I don't know if anyone's on it anymore. But anyway, if you made it through the if you made it through the almost 4 hours of this stream, I really appreciate it. Or if you're just watching this as video, I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed these 5 years of being a content creator on YouTube, on Instagram, etc. So thank y'all for being there. And now y'all know kind of my more in-depth thoughts on my all the coasters that I've ever recalled riding in my entire life. So I'm glad to have given y'all those full thoughts. I don't know if all of y'all are gonna care, but um, just felt like I'd do something for kind of a 5 year um, channel anniversary special. So I did this live stream and now I'm going to keep it as a video. So I hope y'all enjoyed this overall ranking. Um, and if you haven't already, I'm sure you already are, but if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe with post notifications on. Be sure to, turn on post notifications to be notified of more theme park related content like this. Maybe I'll do more streams in the future, probably not of this length. Probably not of this duration. I just did it of this duration because I wanted to go through like all my top coasters. But again, I really hope y'all enjoy this video slash live stream, and I will see y'all in the